This is...
Just invade my lap, no big deal.
FGG, fucking great games. I'm Anthony Schultz.
I'm Juicy J. Juicy John.
Juicy John.
Not Jay. That's another person.
Yeah, that's trademarked.
Make good dance.
I love it on YouTube Music when like Juicy J pops up because all I can think about is that
Right.
every time.
Oh, that definitely just when we first found that freaking surprised me because I made that. That was my Xbox gamer.
Dude, you've had that forever.
Yeah, I had that on the original Xbox.
Yeah, because it was like it was always Juicy J or Carlancelo. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember the names that I was choosing between was like it was John McD with some
number or whatever.
Hyphen. And then they had Juicy John McD and Cerulean Squirrel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. That's super similar.
Exactly.
But how could you pass up like
Juicy?
Yeah, like I mean, you have to. All my stuff's super boring. Like it's either like my childhood nickname, which nobody ever calls me that. Like it's Peabody.
I remember that.
I use that. I still like my since the PlayStation Network now has been around for forever, and I have the same ID. It's Peabody 99224, which is the zip code that I grew up out.
These are passwords too, people. Use them.
Yeah, all the passwords. And then a lot of like modern social media stuff. It's just like I get Anthony R. Schultz all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like which I have a super common name. Like my first name's super common. Schultz is very common, especially as a German last name. And my middle name is Robert. So it's like you wouldn't think that I would have the Twitter handle Anthony R. Schultz, but I do. Like, or I get A.R. Schultz too.
Right.
No numbers, nothing. Just my name. So I just use that. Yeah.
I hate having numbers on things.
Me too. It drives me crazy.
Like, I am John McD. 1, 2, 6, 8, 12, 4, 5, 10. Those are all numbers.
Well, when I was going through all the On the Rock stuff, I like coalesced all the like social media accounts and the YouTube, and I realized that they were initially set up where like the Instagram and Twitter handles were different. However, their counterparts on their respective the other platforms were available. So it's like, why weren't they the same? like
why?
Why don't you just pick one and then have them both be the same? So I did change all that stuff over, but that way it makes more sense. Where it's like, hey, you can follow us here, and I don't have to give out 2 different things. Oh God, Kitten's going to town.
Yeah, he's eating me.
She's gotten a little more playful.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. She was playful last time I was over too.
Well, she pretty much hangs out with all the dogs.
Can you get your claw out of my crotch? Like that just feels awkward.
Nah, it's fine.
There you go.
Here you go. Hang.
Just latch onto my arm.
You just be a koala. She will.
There you go. Just no. You let go.
Yeah, don't let go. There's gravity.
I'll drop you.
I'll do it. I'll punt you.
And you'll land on your feet.
I punt her all the time across the kitchen because she is like the dog. She'll like weave in and out between your legs.
Mm-hmm.
And so like in the morning I'll take all the dogs out, and she, for whatever reason, she's big enough now, but she doesn't think she can get on top of the dryer to the cat food. So she'll scream at you for you to pick her up and put her on the dryer.
Oh, she knows.
Yeah.
She knows she can get up there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen her do it
she's
too.
Like, manservant.
Pretty much. She's a cat. But she'll be in the herd of dogs as I'm trying to walk. And she's so small that she inevitably gets like, slid across the entire kitchen into the wall, and then she comes right back meowing, and I gotta put her on the dryer.
At least she has bite control.
Yeah, it's not over the top.
Yeah.
She doesn't draw blood. She really doesn't scratch.
Probably learned from your other cats.
Yeah, Squirrel and Tashi are pretty good about that. The Cheweenies are the only ones that like scratch.
Oh, did a little hard there.
Okay, chat.
Shot.
Exactly. It harkens back to the fans that make a dance.
Yeah.
And that was a full one.
Yeah, that was a full one. Wasn't sure if I was going to get it all in there.
Ooh, of course. Okay, so what would you like to discuss? We're going to talk about games that people may not know about.
Well, I brought up a couple.
Yeah? No, I mean, those ones I have not heard about, and I can't wait to play.
Those are great. Guardian Legend, that game's awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to scoop those right now, so I have the cover art in front of me.
Yeah. The cover art will tell you nothing on the Guardian Legend.
All those old games never did.
Well, what was cool about old NES games, and this will sound like it's not a cool thing, but it definitely is, because your only access were these hard copies at the time, and we were like little kids, so it's not like we could just walk to the store and buy them either. I don't know about you, but my allowance was definitely not enough to get these games.
Oh,
60
no.
bucks a piece.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And a lot of the prices for those games weren't normalized yet.
Yeah.
Like, they just weren't. I mean, you could get a game that costs $80 and you can get another one that costs like 40, but the game that costs 40 could be heralded as a classic now, and the $80 one could, be awful.
Right.
We didn't have that standardized $60 price point that we do now.
Well, what was cool about those games, and again, this will sound like it's a bad thing, is you learned to like those games.
Oh, yeah.
Any game you got, you learned to like. Nowadays...
And I've heard other podcasters say that. I totally agree, yeah. Because, like you said, you were a kid, you weren't making any money, you didn't get very much for allowance, or if anything.
Adults weren't into games at that time.
Yeah, so if you made the pick and your parents listened, and they bought you that game, or a relative bought you that game, and it was crappy, yeah, you learned to love it. Because that was the only game you were going to get until, your next birthday or Christmas or something along those lines.
Exactly. And it was, you played the hell out of that game. Games like First Castlevania, like that game was awesome.
Yeah.
And that game was also incredibly hard and unforgiving.
Yeah, I remember screaming at Echo the Dolphin as a kid.
God, I loved Echo the Dolphin.
And I still love Echo the Dolphin. I have them. And
I still scream at that game.
Yeah, and that game is fucking hard. It just is. And I can't remember. It's when I lived in Tacoma, and I got my Genesis for my 5th birthday or something like that. I always rented Echo the Dolphin from whatever video store that was nearby, and my mom would let me pick out a video game to rent, and I remember her telling me too, even as a little kid, are you sure you want to get this one? Because she knew I was going to get pissed off at it, but I wanted to beat it so bad. And I loved it when you got the rental copies and they had the codes for the levels ahead from where you were.
Well, that one there, the Guardian Legend, that's how you get to the levels too ahead. Is you get a code.
Yeah.
God, I remember I had binder paper sheets
I do too.
with just all of these codes. This is this part of the game. This is this part of the game.
Yeah, you had your notes and stuff, and then you had the codes that were the ones you unlocked, or if you got rentals, other people would write them because they had spots in the. This is showing our age, but for younger listeners, they had spots in the pamphlets where you could write down those codes.
And a lot of these games, when we went to go rent them, were from Blockbuster.
Yeah, it was Blockbuster, and I remember another big one when my family moved back to Spokane in the Valley, Hollywood Video.
Yep.
That was the one that was really close by, and we went to that one a lot. I remember getting some Genesis games there, actually, that were discounted in a bin when the next generation of consoles came out.
We had a store, which GameStop ended up buying the store out when it became big, but it was a store called Funkoland.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, and they had, what they used to do is they have a bunch of old games like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega CD, and all of that. And I think the new system at the time was the 64 and the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And you go in there and you can pick up a catalog, which is this newspaper thing that had every single game they had and the price for every single game.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was great. I loved that.
Yeah, I remember going into EB Games.
Yeah, EB Games.
That was a big one.
Is that still a store? Or are they?
I think it is in Great Britain and stuff like that. I don't think they're here in the States anymore.
Okay.
At least not in our region.
Well, I think didn't GameStop buy them?
They did. That's why here at
GameStop.
Northtown there was 2 GameStop locations for a long time.
Yeah, there were.
There's one on the top floor and there's one on the bottom floor.
I remember
one was an EB Games though, and one was a GameStop, and then they bought them out. And so.
I remember too. I used to, if they didn't have a game at one, I'd go to the one downstairs.
I did it all the time, yeah. And I like the one downstairs better, and that's the one they closed.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That one was bigger.
It was bigger. Oh, yeah.
Hey, you caught yourself.
And then that whole corner of the mall is gone now. They completely rebuilt it. There's a restaurant there.
And Bumpers is gone.
Yeah, I know.
Bumpers. They just covered it up.
They did, yeah. I love though. I've always kind of wanted to do it, and I'm sure it's locked out. But since we have Ollie with a stroller when we go to the mall, we'll walk up there since we live so close. It's got a lower level button on the elevator, so there's floor 1, floor 2, lower level, and I'm like, is it really locked out? I really want to just be what does it look like now that it's all? Because I'm sure that space still exists. They use it
Nope.
for storage or something like that. But
One weekend, we're gonna have to try this.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's
Let's
like
see
the
it.
Army Man incident all over again.
Right? I like how we went to, where was it? Was it Sears? Or
It was Sears.
Where
The
they
panty
talked about
tables
it?
and stuff.
Well, like where they talked to, where we went later.
Oh,
and
later they
about
talked about it. That was Sears, yeah. Because we set them up in the
panty
fitting
aisle.
rooms and then on the tables, the
Yep.
panty tables, yeah.
We did it there in Sears. We did it in JCPenney as well.
Yeah, we did a little bit everywhere in the mall because we had a ton of them.
We had a ton of them. We had way too much time on our hands.
Yeah, so we staged all these like epic battles with army men in weird places in the mall. Like, and we just went around
Just
to
so you
like,
guys have some context.
yeah. So it was like we did them in fitting rooms. So there was a whole bunch of like riflemen facing the door on the bench. So when you walked into the fitting room, there was like 8 army men facing you.
And we didn't like just go and buy these army men from
No.
Walmart or something. We went to Bumpers, which was an arcade in the mall,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd get tickets from the games there, and we used those tickets to get army men.
Yeah, we'd hang out at the arcade and we would go through all the games that we wanted to play and stuff, and we would combine our tickets, and we just one time got a shit ton of army with all the tickets.
I remember when I like got all the tickets out of that freaking light machine with the light
Oh,
that turns
that's
around.
still the best one.
Oh yeah, I was really good at that.
Remember we do that at the pizza place in Cheney?
Yep.
Yeah, because they had one of those too.
The bowling alley Rosa Pizza.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't remember what it was called, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's Rosa's Pizza.
Is that still open out there?
I don't know. You know, I go out to Cheney all the time, but I haven't
I haven't been out in years.
driven by that at all. I imagine it's still there.
Like the only reason I went out to Cheney before when we were like in our earlier mid-20s is because you lived out there. like after we were done with college, I never went out there.
Remember
Like
you
unless
wrecked your car at my house?
oh yeah, driving way
You'd
too
only
fast.
had the car for like a couple months or something.
I was so pissed. That's a young, dumb, and full of cum kind of like situation for sure.
To be fair, I told you not to do that.
I have never bought a like new car or used car from a lot ever since, and that's why I never have. That was
because
such
you
a
wrecked
headache.
one.
Yeah, I totaled it, and then I didn't have gap insurance, and so I had to pay like another $1,000 on that
God.
loan of a car I did not have, and I was making shit for money at the time. I hadn't started writing yet. I was making crap for wage at Safeway,
Right.
and luckily I had a really good coworker, my assistant produce manager, who sold me his Mazda Protege. I think it was like a 93
I
or
remember that
92.
thing.
I like that car. That's the car I learned how to drive stick on.
What about Chiquita?
Chiquita was great. Yeah, I ran that all the
until
time.
it died.
Yeah, well, because the Protege got split in half from a gal that was speeding in Brown's Edition. Ripped the whole front end of that car off at
Yep.
like 5 in the morning. That sucked.
That's-
That one was not my fault. But yeah, and then I was still in the same kind of pickle. I wasn't making very much money, and I was living on my own then. And it was like another gal who worked in the produce department at that Safeway was like, "Hey, my brother has this 1987 Chevy Chevette that runs, but it's a piece of shit because it's a Chevy Chevette. He'll sell it to you for like $300 just to get rid of it." And it was like I made enough where I could like cash out a paycheck and just give it to him
Right.
and buy it, and so I did. And then that car died when I went out to visit you, driving back to Spokane.
I remember towing that car several times.
Oh yeah, it died constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It was
lasted.
like my rabbit.
It lasted a year though, which was like crazy.
That was like my rabbit, which did not last a year before I threw a rod in that thing.
Yeah, it was funny too because I had it towed from the Michael Anderson Memorial Highway leading to Cheney all the way back to Spokane. It's like a Tiorama or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Okay, how much is this gonna cost to fix it?" And I remember it was like a mechanic I went to regularly. He was a real nice guy, and he was like, "Everything went out on." He's like, "It's not just a issue or two where we could get you up and running for a few $100 or even like $1,200. He's like, it's gonna cost you like $6,000 to get this car going again." He's like, "Just go buy another car." And so it was like, I ended up scrapping that car. I can't remember when I got it next, but
When the rabbit threw a rod, you know, we ended up just bringing it to a scrapyard. And
Yeah.
at the scrapyard, someone bought that car.
oh really?
Just the entire fucking car.
That's
And
crazy.
they put an STI engine in it, and I've seen it around Spokane.
That's crazy.
They still got the Jesus fish on it.
Oh shit! I didn't know that part of the story because I've seen that rabbit, and I did not know that was yours. I was just like, oh, that looks just like the one John had with the same sticker. Like, that's always what I say.
I always, yeah, because I had that Decepticon sticker on the front, too.
Yeah, no, I remember that. That's awesome. I didn't know somebody just bought the whole thing.
Yeah, they just fucking, while we were there.
Oh, really? Wow.
We sold it to Poland Save, and then someone bought the entire fucking thing at Poland Save while we were still there.
Well, that was the funny part about the Chevette is because I paid $300 for it, and then I didn't do shit to that car. It cost like nearly $200 to tow it from Cheney to Spokane, and then I had it scrapped as well, and they paid me $500 for it. So I made the towing fee and the $300 I put into it, or that I bought it for, and I made everything back, but I just got to drive a car like free for a year, save for gas, which was great.
What did you ever do with that Talon?
Oh, Brad took that back.
Okay.
Yeah, I stored it at my parents for a while, and then I was going to put some money into it, and it just never happened. It was just taking up space at their place. And then when Brad got hired on with the police department, he was finally making enough money where he was like, hey, can I just, like, take this back out of it? I made, like, a payment to him. And, he was like, here's the $100 he gave me or whatever it was, and he came and got it. And then I don't know what he did with it afterwards, though.
Yeah, that car wasn't really worth it.
No.
Just a freaking Eclipse. That's all it is.
Yeah. It was nicer than anything I had at the time. I had a 1987 Chevy Chevette.
This is very true.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I've had way nicer cars since. I mean, I've got the Saab, but...
Right. Does that thing run?
I just use new clutch. That's it. Which are really easy to replace at a Saab. I just have not done it. I need to tow the other car, though, and have that scrapped, because that one's toast.
Is that the one you got from your parents?
No, that one bit the dust right after I got that from my folks. So I think that was scrapped when Celeste and I were splitting up, just to get it out of the way.
I love that girl. Don't get me wrong. I actually love that girl. I haven't seen her
did
forever.
At the time, obviously. I married her.
I remember though when she was coming to pick up Megan in that green Taurus, and she blew out a tire. And I was looking at the tires and wires are fucking coming out of all four of her tires. And I'm like, I'm gonna help you change this tire onto a donut. If you and Megan go anywhere, you're not taking this car.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was like, Megan's not going in this car. I don't care.
Yeah. She had a total in that car anyways, and calling me while we were split.
Yeah, I remember that thing was sitting by that house you guys were living in for quite a while.
Yeah, well, she sideswiped another car. Like nothing had happened, but she jammed she snapped every single tire rod on one side and jammed the whole axle up in the motor.
Yeah.
And then took out another car on top of it. Broad daylight, no drinking, like 2 blocks away from the house. I was like, I don't know how you did this.
I wonder how she's doing.
I have no idea.
I need to check up on her.
But yeah, I remember we were not on the best of terms, but she called me in a panic and I went and helped her out. This is not a car podcast, though.
No. We can talk about cars.
Yeah.
I'll talk about cars all day. I mean, it may not be useful information for anybody, but...
It'll just be a nostalgic trip.
Exactly.
Kind of, yeah.
Like Tonka.
Tonka was great, too.
Love that thing.
I have fond memories of
I do, too.
I'm sure you do.
We don't need to elaborate on that.
No, we do not. I like how we went from, like, old school video game codes and levels and stuff to cars.
Hey, it makes sense.
Oh yeah, natural segue. And they're making a Twisted Metal movie.
That's gonna be bad.
It is gonna be bad.
At least they made an Assassin's Creed movie before that, which was also bad.
I actually really like that movie.
Did you?
That and Prince of Persia. Yeah.
I thought that movie was garbage. I thought Prince of Persia was kind of funny to watch, to be honest.
I'm not saying they're great movies. I like Vice movies and B movies, and I loved it. Like, hey, it's like watching Doom. Everyone loves Doom as a video game movie. Doom's a bad movie. It's not
They're making
good.
Another one.
Is there another one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're making another one.
They're making it.
Yeah, it's not out yet.
I don't think that they should fuck with Carl Urban and the
You know what
Box.
movie I'm waiting for? I'm waiting for RoboCop versus Terminator. We got 2 Aliens versus Predator ones.
Yeah.
Why not RoboCop versus Terminator? I got the freaking video game for Game Gear.
I really hate how the new RoboCop kind of tanked.
I actually thought it was pretty good.
Because I liked it. I get it wasn't as like brutal or graphic as like the originals.
Well,
But
like that
it was
one
in
and the
spirit.
Judge Dredd.
The new Judge Dredd was
tank.
amazing.
Yeah, that one tanks too, though.
It did tank, yeah. That's like
I don't think it was amazing, but I thought it was good. I liked it.
I think it's the most true to a comic book.
The problem with those type of movies, because older ones are made, you're never going to live up to what the older fans view the old movies.
Yeah, there's a nostalgia factor there for sure. Like, I mean, there's always a special place in my heart for the Stallone Judge Dredd. Like,
Well,
and that's not a great movie either. It's just we grew up in 90s action, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, stuff like that.
Hey, what about the Dolph Lundgren Punisher?
Yeah, that's another. I
love
told Ariel about that the other day, and she didn't know there was another Punisher that was
That
a
movie
lot
was-
older.
That
Because that released in like the
suckers.
70s,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh, no, it was 80s.
80s.
Or no, that might be actually 91. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was a little bit older.
It's not.
But it's like it is the first one in that franchise.
Yeah. I actually thought it was good, for a Dolph Lundgren movie.
Dolph Lundgren's great.
A lot better than his He-Man and the Master of the Universe. Have you seen that one?
Yes, I
That
have.
one's garbage.
It
I
wanted
love
to
it.
be Conan, and Conan was bad. I love
Oh.
Conan, but like,
Conan, where He-Man ends up coming to the modern world. Like, it's
oh yeah, it's all yeah.
the modern world in 1988 or whatever year.
It was something like that though, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I really like the new Dread though because it was the closest to like a comic book that I had ever seen in film, or even like a video game adaptation. I should say like they're not very close. Like the best part in Doom is when it switches to first person at the end.
But see,
And he's going through and shooting it. Like,
but
that was
making
great.
a movie on Doom is like making a movie on Unreal Tournament.
I feel like though with the new Doom and that storyline, you could make a movie on that
You
because that
can.
actually had a really good story that was very underrated, underplayed. Like,
Well, it was definitely more story than the original Doom, which the original Doom story was pretty much non-existent.
Yeah,
it was
it
in the
didn't.
instruction manual and the little blurbs that were put in between each level. It was pretty much, you're a space marine. You punch your superior officer.
it's kind of like Wolfenstein. Like,
Yeah.
you could totally do a lot better movie with the reboot of Wolfenstein.
I love the reboot of Wolfenstein. I haven't played Wolfenstein 2 yet.
This is kind of
new
a
Colossus or whatever.
the
it
new
is.
Colossus, yeah. So I platinumed the first Wolfenstein, which is
Great game.
amazing game, or the reboot, I should say. That was the first one of that.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of known for being difficult, so I was like very happy that I was able to platinum it, and I did it on the hardest difficulty, and yada yada yada. I did it. I was like, yes, this is a good moment for me. So I got new classes, and I'm like, oh, I bet I can do it again. Like, if I already did it once, and this is kind of a really hard game to begin with, like, I can do it for the second one. They have like a ridiculous mode where it's like, it's the hardest difficulty, which is just difficult to beat on its own right, which matches probably difficulty-wise in the first one on that same mode. You can't die. And you can't take a hit. And you have to beat the whole game to get a trophy to get your like platinum for it. I'm like, nope. I'm good, but I'm not that good. Like, and I'm playing on the hardest I'm playing on the hardest difficulty right now, and I can do it. But there's no way I could go through without dying or taking a hit. Like, it's just not gonna happen.
We'll make it happen.
It's not gonna happen.
You don't
man.
give up, man.
It's not
you don't
gonna
give
happen.
up.
So I played like half that
You're
game, and then I
what's wrong
gave
with
up.
You're what's wrong with this country?
Oh, I'm gonna get exiled to Canada. Not again.
Yeah, you'll have to live with Justin Bieber.
And,
Well, actually, he doesn't live in Canada. He's just from Canada.
Ryan Reynolds.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I like Ryan Reynolds. Except for I did watch the Detective Pikachu.
Don't say anything about that. Ariel and I are doing a date night, and she wants to see that movie over everything else.
Well, in that case, let me tell you everything about it.
I don't personally care, but I don't want her to overhear.
This sucks.
I figured that's where you were going. I figured. I vibe for John Wick, so.
If I were 10, I would probably love that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting though to discuss like kind of all the video game movie adaptations or even comic book movie adaptations that they've done. Like I feel like they just really have not hit. I don't know if they ever will. I'm sure they will, but they just have not. There has not been like just an amazing one where it's like, look, this is a good film in its own right and true to. Just try to take that back. I'm gonna say Logan for comic books. That's probably like the closest one.
Logan was
Video
good.
game wise, I don't know if I can think of anything.
I liked Logan. I really liked the Marvel movies. the Marvel Universe movies.
They're
which
really
Logan's
good. No,
not
they
part
are
of,
good.
but-
I'm just thinking ones that like hold up, I guess, like a critical film standpoint as well as being, I guess, entertaining and true to the comic book character or comic books in that sense. I think Logan does the best between the two.
I don't know. Old Man Logan was very different than the Old Man Logan they portrayed in.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I agree with that.
But
But I feel like Hugh Jackman kind of personified Wolverine, especially since that's his last one, and so that side of it was already kind of done.
I really liked his role as Wolverine, except for in X-Men Origins.
Which is funny because I still get hate email about my review for X-Men. No, not X-Men Origins. I'm sorry. The Wolverine. I get hate mail about that one.
Oh, I actually still haven't seen that one. I want to. I kind of had been avoiding it because of X-Men Origins.
X-Men Origins I like because it's not a good film. I'm not going to endorse that. But it's another fun Vice film for me. And like Wolverine's one of my favorite characters.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like going to be down with it regardless.
Did you see the petition for people wanting Danny DeVito to play Wolverine?
Oh, God. That would be amazing, and I would watch that.
He's got the right height.
Yeah? I think Tom Hardy has been floating around to play Wolverine. I think he could do it.
I think he could do it, too. He was an interesting Venom.
Yeah. He was. It was definitely a different spin on it. I really liked that movie, too, actually.
That one didn't get good reviews, did it?
No, it didn't get good reviews, but it did really, really well at the box office.
Well, I thought it was a good movie.
I thought it was a good movie, too.
And
the fans thought it was a good movie.
Yeah. I was surprised at how well it did for being PG-13 for what Venom is.
It was surprisingly though, kind of graphic at certain points. Forget they didn't show a lot. There's quick cuts.
Well, that's the thing. They didn't show it, but they definitely
they allude to it. Yeah, and they talk about it.
I just ate that guy's head.
Yeah, it's and so it flies under that R radar, but they did a really good job alluding to no pun intended the carnage.
Mm-hmm.
And
carnage. Which I seriously thought that what's his face at the end was Willem Dafoe, and it's not. Who was it?
Oh, Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson.
Yeah,
I totally thought that was Willem Dafoe. I really thought it was for a second. I was like, nope, that's not him.
Woody Harrelson, as he's aged, does look like Willem Dafoe, though.
Right?
Totally.
But Woody Harrelson, I think he'll do an amazing.
Woody Harrelson,
Cassidy.
Yeah, has kind of. He's become one of those actors that went from being good, handsome, and charming, and young, doing his thing on Cheers and stuff like that, and kind of fulfilling that kind of niche at the time to Oscar award-winning kind of actor who just kind of does whatever the fuck he wants to do and picks whatever role he wants to do and does great in it no matter what, and that's cool to see.
That is cool to see. You know what's funny? Willem Dafoe, in every movie he's been, whether the movie is good or bad, he's good in the movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've watched the Death Note movie with him. He was playing Ryuk, which was Japanese god of death, kami.
Okay.
And
I've read about it, but I haven't watched it yet. I've wanted to. You're referencing the one that's on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That movie was terrible.
Was it?
Willem Dafoe was amazing.
It's kind of like in The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Yes.
I think that's it's one of my favorite Wes Anderson ones, but I also simultaneously think that it's one of the weakest Wes Anderson films. And William Dafoe does a brilliant job in that movie. And he really comes close to outshining Bill Murray and Jeff Goldblum, which I really can't imagine doing, but he does it. He's really fucking close. Yeah, he's another one that just... Very similar to Woody Harrelson. Or probably the other way. Woody Harrelson's more similar to William Dafoe now. William Dafoe has done his thing for a long fucking time now.
Daybreakers, have you seen that movie?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with Ethan Hawke.
Yeah. That movie itself, I love that movie, don't get me wrong. But it really wasn't that great a movie.
It's kind of like Legion.
Yeah.
Paul Bettany. I kind of put those together. They came out about the same time. Got a good cast in them. I love both those movies. Although, not great movies. One of my personal favorites.
Daybreakers, I definitely loved, but I know it's not that great a movie. But Willem Dafoe, again,
brilliant.
He was great in that movie. He didn't have a very large role in that.
It was who was the villain in the first Blade? What is that actor's name? He was hot stuff for a while.
I don't remember his name.
He was great in that movie, though. I got my phone here. I can't remember his name, but he was like he almost played like a Lestat character in Blade, where he was like the hot new thing and the young vampire who was just gonna do whatever the fuck he wanted to do. And
Twilight references, people? No.
Yeah, really.
Screw that series.
Where a dog fucks an underage girl. Cool.
Because that is great.
Good stuff. I remember so, again, for context, my sister's like almost 10 years younger than me. And so she was like prime into like Twilight. She would probably refute this now. But I remember she was like half of that stuff. She read all the books. She wanted to see all the movies. I teased her relentlessly about it. My mom pulled me aside one day and she was like, you can't do this. Like, you're 10 years older, 9 years older. Like, it's something that she likes. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So I tried to read the first one. Whoa. Could not get through it. I tried. I didn't tell my sister about it, but I just couldn't do it. And then...
Megan's reading a book for her book club. I gotta read you the description of this fucking book.
Yeah.
This book is,
And then I took my sister to one of the Twilight movies in theaters and we watched it. It's the only one I've ever seen. And I was like, oh my god. I was like, all the shit that I said about this, like making fun of, was like completely right. Like I was totally right. Like I felt bad because it was my sister. My mom was right in that sense, but
I get that.
It was like, oh, this is so bad. In the years since, however, I think my sister would totally deny that she ever did that. Like I think she knows now.
Okay, so this book is called Prelude, and it's actually a local author, and it's a self-published book.
Stephen Dorff, by the way, he was the villain in Blade. That was like hot stuff for a while. I really liked him in Blade.
Now, the leader of the book club really loves this series.
Okay.
And I get it, because it kind of fits her whole thing, but here's the description of the book. Now, bear with me.
No, I'm down.
As I read this. Prelude. And it's a 4-part series, but this is just the first book. Sarah Mills is an endangered species. She just doesn't know it. Then she turns 16 and transitions. One magical hangover later, she's awakened as a gorgeous adult siren, a species the other magical races thought went extinct 13 years ago. Most girls might adore the attention Sarah's suddenly getting, but all she wants to do is become invisible for the remainder of her high school career. Unfortunately, Sarah can't seem to turn off her siren compulsion. People hang on her every word. They do whatever she asks them to do. The best-looking guy in school wants to date her. Sarah just wants to go unnoticed, but it seems all she can do is make mistakes. After she shatters the minds of her foster parents with her first siren song, Sarah has no choice but to move in with the class diva. It's the foster system all over again, but this time, her host is a mermaid princess backed by a council of magical creatures. The council claims to have her best interests at heart. They even assigned her a stoic elf bodyguard just to keep her safe, because unfortunately for Sarah, there's a reason the sirens all died off over a decade ago. Someone isn't happy that she survived. Someone wants her dead. The first attack was a wraith. The second attack played on Sarah's greatest fears. The third attack might succeed.
Oh my god.
That is like every
So
that's like every...
Before we dive in and unpack this, by the way, because we're going to be talking about this.
I read a couple pages of the second book, by the way, to Megan.
So Ariel says, oh God, which is my immediate reaction to this. Regularly. And it's one of those kind of things that you just don't know, like a phrase you say. Hey, so far, guys. A phrase that you say that you don't know that you say regularly. And I didn't even notice.
I have to catch myself because sometimes saying stuff like that, I have a lot of religious friends and they don't particularly appreciate it.
Yeah, I know. It's like I'm a stay-at-home dad, so my world is this. Yeah. Like at work, I definitely like censored myself before, though. I get that aspect of it too. Yeah, well, Ariel says it like quite frequently. So Oliver, our son, he's like a little over a year old. He's like a year and 2 months. He knows some phrases, like not a ton, like in general, but he can say like mama, dada, bottle, face hugger. That's another story.
That's the one we're gonna have to unpack later.
Yeah, exactly. Baba Yaga from John Wick. Open the door. He knows that one. That's from Far Cry. But the one he says all the time now, lately, and he uses it correctly all the time, which is fantastic, is, oh God. And it's like, the inflection behind it is that, as a little kid, oh God. So, like, we got a new car seat for him since he's getting bigger, and I was putting him in the car seat. We're going to Trader Joe's, do some grocery shopping. First time in his car seat. Well, he didn't want to let go of his bottle, and I'm trying to wrangle his arms into, like, the straps and stuff so I can buckle him in.
Mm-hmm.
And I get one arm in, and then I take his bottle out and put it in his, like, little cup holder. I put the other arm in, and he's like, oh, God. And he, like, rolled his eyes and, like, used it correctly. And he does that all the time. But, long story short, that reaction that Oliver has now because of his mother, I had to you reading that.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's definitely my reaction to it.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And you want to know something? I want to read this book.
I kind of do. I want to do a review for it. Like,
yeah,
I've gotten back into review writing, so that would be great.
Part of the reason I want to read this book isn't just because, I mean, definitely a lot of it's because of the description and how ridiculous the description seems.
It hits so many different, like...
It's freaking
young adult. Like, it's not just one or two major beats. It's everything.
Yeah, every teenage...
Foster care, fantasy, like...
Every teenage
you live with the
girl
diva,
fantasy.
the hot boy in school, like, you fuck up your parents, I want to be invisible and popular, but not both. And it's like, oh my God. There's the stoic dark elf.
Yep.
Like, that's another one.
A.
And then murder, like, and betrayal. Like, it just hits everything.
And I've read like a couple of pages of the second book, and there's definitely parts that are very cringeworthy. It's Prelude by A.M. Hodgson, and she's actually a local author.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, she's a local author, and this is a self-published book. And it's also, and that's the other reason why I kind of want to buy it and read it, because...
I read a lot of like local authors because of that. Like all the writing that I did and the review work I did, that was something I wanted to be a part of and be aware.
But the book is very Twilight-esque, but one thing this seems to do better than Twilight is it makes me giggle.
Yeah.
Where Twilight
took itself too seriously.
It did. Well,
yeah.
this book takes itself pretty seriously as well, but it's like I said, it's just because it has every single teenage girl fantasy just sort of stuffed into it.
Yeah.
And just overflowing.
How long are these books by chance? Like ish, like 200-300 pages, like average.
I think they're about 200 pages.
Okay.
So they're not.
That's a lot though. Like with that little synopsis that you read.
284 pages.
Okay, so that's about average. Like, that's a lot to like cram pack into a single book though.
Right.
Some of those themes and motifs I think it would be easier to spread over like the series itself.
Yeah, there is 4 books. I can buy all 4 books for $25, and I'm probably gonna do it.
Yeah.
There's Prelude, which is called the Rhapsody Quartet, but Prelude, Sonata, Caprice, and Nocturne.
They even have the great like young adult like fantasy novel names. That's
and look at the covers for all these books. So you saw the cover for the first book. There's the second one. It's got a little mermaid theme to it.
The covers aren't half bad, actually. I've seen some really bad stuff. Like
No, the covers aren't bad at all, but they fit the theme. They definitely fit the.
They do, yeah.
The theme.
There was one of the last contracts I had when I was reviewing novels and working as an editor full time. What was this guy named? It was like 7 years ago now, or 6 years ago. Fuck, I can't remember. It was like a political espionage kind of like thriller. There was like a love story thrown in, which I think is good for a narrative on the whole. But he had like a romance cover novel, and I remember like doing my review for it, and I read through the book. I had like minor issues with the editing. It was actually a pretty decent book. I gave him like a 4.5 out of 5 stars or something. He was like just shy. And he's like, well, what could I do to be like a 5 out of 5 for you? And I was like, well, that'd be pretty difficult overall. Like, I could name my all-time favorite book easily.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know what I would give a perfect score to, like... I shouldn't say anything, because I do have an argument the other way, too. But, like, it was like, I told him flat out, I was like, the cover, like, it doesn't really fit the tone of your novel very well. And I was like, from a marketing standpoint, which I was doing a lot of at the time, because I was working as an editor, I was like, people aren't going to pick it up. They're going to think it's something else, and then read it and be disappointed. So even though it's a good book, I was like, you should, think about revising your cover so that like the audience that you want or the style of writing that you're like conveying like matches like the audience. So
Right.
it's like if they are just browsing and looking at the book based on its cover and its name, they'll be like, oh, that's something I would read, and hopefully it'll be more into what they read. Those covers are actually really good though.
No, these covers match the book.
They match the
Like
book
that,
and they're like fairly elegant. Like I like it.
And I should say, I'm not going to buy these books to make fun of the books.
No, I'd be curious to read it myself too.
I'm curious. Like it's the book's not written for me. Clearly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a teenage girl.
Yeah.
At least I
Neither's
don't think.
Megan.
Well,
it's a book club though.
Yeah, it's a book club thing.
So
and she said that the first book wasn't as bad as she thought it was going to be, because she's not typically into that sort of thing.
So she thought it was going to be worse than it was,
Yeah.
and then read it and actually enjoyed it more than that bar.
Right.
Yeah,
And she didn't particularly like the book, but she's like, it's not.
But that's not a genre she reads. I mean,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't like the best of that work.
Whereas the leader of this book club, this is her favorite series.
Yeah, so she obviously is down with it then.
Which it fits her.
So does Megan, during her book club, does she always read through all the books, or there is something she wants to read or not?
She reads through all of
Does
them.
she?
Because she's
Because I struggle with that personally. If it's something that doesn't like grab me or that I
Mhm.
would be interested in, like I wouldn't do well in a book club because of that. Like if somebody else picked the book to read and it was something like that,
Yeah.
I'd be like, I would probably start to read it. Like, and I don't know because I haven't read it, but just a prior knowledge, I guess. I would be like, I can't read this. I don't really like this. I would rather read something else, kind of a thing.
Well, and you kind of for book clubs, that's the kind of mindset that can't really have for book clubs.
That's what I mean.
Because
That's
it's
why
like
I wouldn't do well
yeah.
at a book club. Like, I was just curious.
I actually read 2 of the books from our book club, which one of them was right up my alley, which was Ready Player One.
That was a good one. I like that one.
I like that book. I had complaints about it, like you had a description of the main character's avatar before the main character.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
And the part that was weird was they described the main character as, oh, it kind of looks like me, but
yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't even know what you look like.
Yeah, I don't have that pretense or knowledge,
Right.
so how am I supposed to be able to mentally envision anything?
And then on the flip side, in the first couple of chapters,
But you could say that could be done purposefully though, because it is very much focused on like the avatar and that virtual reality.
right.
So it's like less important kind of a thing. It's supposed to be you and leave that kind of guise of mystery
Right.
open.
And again, it's kind of like just nitpicking more than anything else. But
That's just the critic in me.
Yeah.
Like, that's
The
shit.
book
That's shit I would say in a review. What I just said.
Yeah. The book
to be
was
amicable.
good, right? The book was good. I really liked the book, and
I did like the book.
I would read
I liked
it
the movie
again.
too.
Yeah, the movie was good, even though it was very different.
It was a lot different. It wasn't true to source material per se, but I kind of like that it was modernized or more like mainstreamed and built for film.
Well, I'm pretty sure it had a lot of licensing issues as far as trying to. Cause it's very much more 90s and early millennium references as opposed to.
I can't remember the
80s.
cost of that. Like what that would be to get the license or the approval to do all of that.
Right, because they didn't have any of the D&D stuff in there.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Like, I can't imagine what that would cost.
And that was the whole focus of the very first key was a D&D. It was the whole D&D thing, but
like I don't know if you've seen Russian Doll on Netflix, but they use that Harry Nilsson song, "Gotta Get Up." They got the approval to use that song from the Nilsson estate, but every time they used it, they were charged for it. So if they used it as many times as they had referenced in their original script, it was going to bankrupt the production of it. They were going to spend all of their music budget and then some. And so they had to then go back and rewrite the script and only use it on certain occasions because of that. So I can't imagine, obviously a lot bigger budget film, especially with Spielberg behind it, but like all of those pop culture references, like trying to get the license for them, even if like everyone said yes and there was just a monetary value attached to it, fuck, that would drive up a budget so quick.
I will say, Ready Player One, I really enjoyed the ending of that movie. There was a lot of pressure, and I didn't feel that pressure with the ending of the book.
I agree.
The book, they're like in the what's his face's mansion.
Yeah.
And they're all just like waiting for the main character to win, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the movie, they're like in a van running from a bunch of people trying to kill them while trying to complete this game.
Yeah, there was definitely like a bigger like risk reward situation going on with the film, which I like better too.
But overall, I like the book better, which isn't surprising.
I like the book better too.
Yeah.
I think too, just the structure of those mediums, it makes more sense to have it the way it is in the book and have it the way it was in the film.
Well, the main character too in the movie, I thought was more realistic.
Yeah.
Because in the book, he was this super intelligent. He seemed like a unrealistically intelligent character.
Yeah.
For who he was.
Well, especially in the world they lived in.
Yeah.
That's conveyed in the movie pretty well, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But
like when he
the setting and world, like he didn't match up with it.
Like when he finally started getting wealthy.
Yeah.
Like in the movie, he was just spending the money wherever he could.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just excited to be making money. Like I want
Which
all
is
of
what
this.
people would do in that situation.
And in the book, he was more strategic with his funds.
Yeah.
He did buy a lot of the same stuff that was in the movie, but it's more of, this is something that could be useful, or this is something I should keep out of the hands of the...
It's more like pragmatic.
Yeah.
Opposed to like newfound wealth or greed. Not greed per se, that's a little harsh.
I thought it was
Newfound
interesting that Artemis ended up being in that prison facility as opposed to Parzival going into it.
Yeah.
But I still liked that. Like, that was interesting.
What was the other one that you read for book club?
The Alchemist.
The Alchemist? What was that one? That sounds familiar.
It was a pretty popular book for a while. I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
I thought the book was very simple.
Is that a young adult one as well, or no?
Kind of, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say more college level, but very small. It's a very small book.
Yeah, like a novella.
I think it's less than 200 pages or something like that.
Yeah, it's really damn close to a novella. Like barely kind of goes past it, but
right. But I didn't really care for it. It wasn't very descriptive of what was going on. The goals of the main character were not entirely clear. It was he seemed very passive as opposed to active as the main character, so that the story kind of happened to him as opposed to him guiding the story.
Okay.
Which doesn't necessarily make it good or bad. It's just
yeah,
I don't think
a protagonist should be a driving force, though. Yeah, not an NPC in their own novel. Yeah, just an observer. That's the point of a narrator.
Yeah, but sometimes a passive character works in a story. It just doesn't in this one.
I think it works when you have an ensemble that's well rounded out. Like there's good characterization, but they're all kind of like passive or as a collective driving the story. I think that works. But if it's like very singular, it's kind of it can be boring at times, really, because there's not action. Like that person can just be the narrator, and you could read the same events, and nothing would change.
Right.
So it's like that's like narrative structure. You like argument there, but
right. And the book itself to me just didn't seem like it had any personality to it.
You're making me access like weird like neural pathways I haven't thought about in a long time, like with
review
and editing and writing and stuff like that.
And say you are the writer. I am not a writer. I am an engineer.
I did it for so many years, and then I like strayed away from it. So it's like getting back into it is definitely good. But these kind of conversations I really enjoy because it's like, I remember writing about this or like discussing this or trying to work out these kind of like arguments internally to write a better review or be a better editor or whatever it may be.
I can only get these books digitally.
No, I haven't like at Auntie's or anything since they're local.
When Megan tried to get it, she couldn't find it at Auntie's.
That sucks.
I might just have to fire up the old Kindle that I haven't used in like 2 years.
I know, I've got mine charging on my bedside table, like perpetually. I don't remember the last time I opened it up.
I think the
last time I got it all cleaned up and like going and charging so I could do either just more reading, but I've also got a stack of like hardbacks and paperbacks on the same end table that I'm working through.
I can't remember the last thing I read on that thing.
I have no idea what I last
read. It was a comic
read.
book of some kind.
I did that. I had the Comixology app, and I went through a lot of
still
comics
have
for a
that.
while. Yeah, because I did subscribe to their service. They had so many free comics. it's not free, but
Mm-hmm.
if you paid the subscription price, it was a ridiculous amount of like content.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to get that book. It's gonna be bad.
I really want to read that too now. Actually,
Yeah.
I have to fire up the Kindle and do it as well.
I want to be surprised. That's what I want to be. I want to be surprised. Be like, oh, this is actually really amazing.
Well, it's kind of a good endorsement by Megan, like, to be honest, where
Mhm.
she did not expect to like it. It's not a genre she really reads, but she was doing it because, she partakes in the book club and then liked it more than that mark.
Right.
Like, that's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
It's
Doesn't-
not like, oh, it's even worse than I imagined. Like, and I had to force myself to finish this
Honestly,
book.
if she had said that it was worse than she imagined, because she had the same thoughts I did with
Yeah.
after reading the description,
That synopsis
then
is great.
then I would fucking read it. Still,
Yeah.
like, it's worse. I gotta read this shit.
I feel like
Yeah.
that synopsis should be like there should have been a copy editor, which is probably the author since it's like self-published, but
Mhm.
should be truncated. Like give the aura of mystery a little bit.
Yeah,
It crams so much into it that it's it's great to read aloud and like kind of nitpick and make fun of, but like
I did feel
leave
like
it a
we
little
got-
more ethereal. I feel like I just heard the whole story. Almost.
Yeah, I was gonna say I did feel like
Yeah.
I just heard the whole story, but who knows? Maybe there's a lot more into it.
It could be. Yeah, we got to read it.
I said I only read a few pages of the second book,
It's like we got the Cliff Notes or the Spark Notes version of it, just in that synopsis.
which, by the way, the few pages I read in the second book was an almost sex scene.
Yeah, sounds like Twilight. I remember there was
it just helps get the motor running, whatever.
one of my contracts that I got was to review the Sleepy Hollow, the TV show,
Okay.
the novel adaptation of like the first season or something, or it was like an in between. So I was on a deadline for that, and I also had like 6 other books to finish. And I like the show Sleepy Hollow.
Right.
However, that one got shuffled to the very end of my list, and I was like 6 hours away from like having to write that review and send it off, and it was like a paid review and promotion. And I totally like hopped online. I read reviews and the Spark Notes like of it, and this is like the shadiest thing I've done as a reviewer. Wrote a review based off of other reviews and the Spark Notes version of it, so I could meet my deadline, like because I had already been paid.
You're that type of reviewer.
Only that one. That's the only time it ever happened. Yeah, everything else I always like. I played through the game like completely, like 100%ed it, or I would read the book like at least twice.
Mm-hmm.
I would read it once as like an editor, like, and I would do notes in it and stuff, and then I would read it once just for me, like for pleasure, and then I would do my review. That's always how I reviewed. But that one book just like slid under the radar. I also, funny story, got it's when the first 50 Shades of Grey movie was coming out.
Mm-hmm. Oh god.
Yeah. And it was like, it kind of tied into whatever new book in that series was coming out at the same time. And so, I can't remember which publishing house it was, but they were like, we will pay you $1,200 to review this and do promotional work for it. And there was a whole bunch of things. It wasn't just a review. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to take any money, but like send the book to me. Like, I'll look at it. I'll start to read it. I read 2 pages of it, and I remember hopping on my laptop and emailing them back, and I was like, I'm not taking your money. I'm not reviewing this, and I'm not reading it. That was like one of the bigger ones that I turned down, where I was like, nope. Like, I am not... Like, I will receive probably hate mail for my review of the Wolverine Origins, which I still do. I have a smart box folder.
It wasn't
on my
Origins,
email.
it was the other one.
Yeah, the Wolverine, sorry.
Yeah.
I get hate mail for that review all the time. Still, and it's been years. I wrote that review when that movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
That I would take over reviewing that fucking book. Like, and turning down $1,200 any day of the week.
I wish I was popular enough to have hate mail.
Oh yeah, I have a smart box folder that I've had for like the last 6-7 years, where I tag keywords and I read through them. I love them. Like, it's my favorite.
What you should do is you should make a freaking podcast.
I should. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, no, I get a lot of hate mail for that film review I did for the Wolverine. There's a couple other big ones. A lot of my film reviews I got a lot of hate mail for, not comic books per se.
What you should do is you should review those emails.
It'd be great. It'd do like little like bite-sized like criticisms of them, write them out, send them off.
Be like, well, your grammar isn't really good here. So I sent you back some edits.
No, and I'm not gonna lie. The first time, so I think I bring up the Wolverine because that's the very first like review I did where I got hate mail, and it threw me off because it's like I can't imagine having such a visceral reaction to a review about a movie that you feel the need to provide a death threat for the the reviewer. Like that seems crazy to me.
Right.
And
was it a good review?
What?
Was it a good review?
Yeah, I gave it positive marks.
Okay.
I didn't give it a perfect score by any means, but I said it was good, and I said that it followed that particular story arc for his like initial. It was more modernized, but his initial showdown with Silver Samurai. I said it did a really good job, and in my opinion, was at the time, this was before Logan, was the best Wolverine movie.
Well, to be fair, the previous Wolverine movie.
It was an easy claim to make. I mean, I copped out as a writer there.
I would even stretch to say Spider-Man was a better Wolverine movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like we had the first two X-Men before Hugh Jackman kind of came into his own as Wolverine. Those are good movies, but it was like he hadn't really built up for the part. He hadn't really like come into it. X-Men 3, I feel like he was more at the forefront, but everyone hates that movie. X-Men Last Stand.
But yeah, I didn't really care for that movie either.
And then there was Origins, which another one that bombed, and then The Wolverine. And so, yeah, I said that The Wolverine was like the most accurate depiction of that story arc, but modernized, and that Hugh Jackman had really come into his own as Wolverine by the time we got to that one, so that it was a good Wolverine movie. And yeah, I got like when I got my first like hate mail about that, and at the time it was a lot. I mean, I'm talking about a couple hundred a day.
Right.
I was like upset about it. I was like, what the hell? Like, what the hell did I do wrong? And I thought about like maybe retracting it or rewriting it or doing stuff like that. And I was like, no, like fuck that shit. Like, it's my opinion. It's just a review. Take it with a grain of salt or leave it. And I focused at the time on like all the positive reception I got from it, because there was a lot of people who like commented on it that were like, this is awesome, I agree, I took my kid to this, yada yada yada, or I read this comic book, I think I agree with you, kind of a thing. So I focused on that. As the years went by though, I did set up that smart mailbox folder in my email, and I read through them like now probably every couple months. Like, it's not as prevalent. At the time, it was like every other day or every week at least I would read through them, and they were fantastic. I loved it. Some of them just vitriol shit people would say. Like, it was like, wow. Are you that fucked up in the head and lonely that like you have to sit there at your laptop or on your phone or whatever the fuck you were doing after reading an Amazon review or wherever the fuck you found it and be so pissed off?
Have you ever watched One Punch Man? I know you don't really care for it. Oh, you do? You have watched it. Have you seen the episode after he beats the Deep Sea King?
Yes.
Where he gets the hate mail then?
Yeah.
I like his response. Well, this guy has a lot of time on his hands.
Yeah. Well, and it took me a while to get there, but after a little while, I started to kind of grow into that, where it was like, okay, this is just funny now. Like, these people have way too much time on their hands. Like, yeah, they're voicing their opinion, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't fucking matter.
Which, by the way, One Punch Man took bad storytelling and made it good.
Yeah.
Because that's a series that has no development, but that's the point of it.
Which is great, though. I love it when you, like, series like that, or any kind of medium that does it, where they subvert expectations.
It's like the character's already developed, and he's bored.
That's what I mean. It's after the climax.
Yeah. And I love it.
Like, that makes sense. Like, that's a smart way to do it.
And, like, the characters the characters in the show, aside from Saitama, are less characters and more tropes of other anime characters. Like,
that's interesting as well.
You got the angry little girl who's actually older than what she seems to be. You have the overzealous student. You have the old guy who's just kind of wise, but that's about what he it's just
not active, but wise.
Right. they did a very good job. And they actually, in the second season, which a lot of people don't like the second season all that much, started developing those characters a little bit. And I actually liked it. I actually liked the second season quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it was a different studio who did the actual anime, and I've been reading the manga as well, and I'm like, it stays pretty true to the manga. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was good.
I really liked it.
There was a lot more development in the second season. I mean, I know it's only subtitled. I was gonna wait until it dubbed.
Yeah.
But I was impatient. I had to freaking watch it.
It's like I think we talked about this last podcast, actually, or maybe just in our free time. But Andrew Goldfarb, I said Garfield before.
Yeah, I think we did talk about that in the podcast.
Yeah, how he played through Persona 5 when he was at IGN in Japanese, and he doesn't speak or read Japanese. Got his platinum for it, and then went and platinumed it again when it came out in English, and it was dubbed.
Yeah, you did. We did mention that in the last podcast. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that we were enough in drinks wise that I said Andrew Garfield, and you called me out on it because you like Spider-Man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Who is going to play Nathan Drake in an Uncharted movie? Yeah, slated to come out in 2020, and I can picture him as a young Nathan Drake.
Yeah, I think he could do a pretty good job with that. Yeah, He did an okay job with his portrayal of Spider-Man. I wouldn't say it was the most accurate portrayal, but
not
it was
him. I'm mixing up Spider-Mans now. Tom Holland, I'm sorry, is
Tom
playing.
Holland.
The new Spider-Man is playing a young Nathan Drake in Uncharted, not Andrew Garfield.
I don't think that's less believable now. I think Andrew Garfield would have made a pretty good Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
Young one.
I think Nathan Fillion, which was what it was rumored years ago when Uncharted supposedly was spooling up for production. I think he would have been a great Nathan Drake.
I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man, though.
Tom Holland's Spider-Man's great. I really like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I think Tom Holland is doing better now. The more he's gone on.
Well,
Tobey Maguire, I fucking hate as Spider-Man.
Well, what's funny is he's my least favorite Spider-Man, but he that movie, aside from Mary Jane being the first main love interest, was probably the most comic accurate movie.
Yeah, I hated those movies. And I love Sam Raimi as a director too.
I like the first one. I didn't care for the second or third one. Third one, I just absolutely.
I never even watched the third one.
The third one actually had good story. Had good story in it, but
I heard
Tobey
it was
Maguire was
2 or 3 films jammed into one kind of a thing.
Well, it had too many villains jammed into one movie.
Yeah.
It was so convoluted, and it was one of the most popular moments in Spider-Man's history where he got the symbiote costume that eventually became Venom.
Yeah.
And
which I remember the promos for that. Yeah.
Which they tried to portray this in the movie, and they didn't do the worst job in the world. They didn't do a very good job. Was the symbiote made him more confident and also made him more aggressive.
Yeah, I just don't think Tobey Maguire can play that.
Well, their portrayal of more confident was him doing some weird fucking dance in a club.
That's what I mean. I remember seeing those scenes or those bits, on YouTube later, or whatever they showed in trailers, and it was just oi. I don't think Tobey Maguire and Topher Grace in that film are strong enough actors. They're not ones I think that are manly men or overly confident character actors. They're just not. And then they were trying to do that, and it was I'm not gonna buy it.
I will say this: Tobey Maguire actually did a good Peter Parker.
Okay.
I don't like Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I don't like Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker.
Fair enough.
And a lot of that's because I just don't like Peter Parker, and he probably did the most accurate version of Peter Parker.
What do you think about have you played the new Spider-Man game?
I haven't yet.
Oh, okay. That one I thought was an interesting take because he references being in high school and college, but he's our age.
Yeah.
And it was great to see a Spider-Man who's been Spider-Man for a while. He knows what the fuck's going on, and he's still Peter Parker and still Spider-Man, but it's hey, I've been Spider-Man for 10 years, or almost.
I actually love the references to that in Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah.
When Doc Ock is going back to college to get Peter Parker's doctorate.
Yeah, that was funny. I love that series.
And then Doc Ock's looking at all the college girls, and Peter Parker's hey, I'm too old for these girls.
Yeah, he knows. That was a funny bit. Yeah, the Insomniac's Marvel Spider-Man like does a good job doing that, where it's like he's older, like he has a job, he's out of college, like he's out of high school. It's not all about the same stuff. They make passing references to like major story beats that happened before.
Right.
That if you're a Spider-Man fan, you'll know.
Which I definitely am a Spider-Man fan, as much as I don't like Peter Parker.
But it was, in my opinion, like the most palatable version of Peter Parker that I've seen in any medium. I was like, I can dig this and I can get where he's coming from, but it's like classic Peter Parker like tendencies, but it's like matured.
Yeah.
Like he grew up.
Well, and they did really good with that in the comics. Peter Parker has matured quite a bit, and in the newer
comics are better.
Yeah,
in that sense.
Because he was very much like pretty whiny in his teenage years and in his 20s. And it's, but it worked for the character.
Yeah.
Because it was,
well, and of the time, it definitely works.
Actually, Spider-Man's a perfect
Running
example of a passive character that works. The story kind of happens to him.
True.
He doesn't really have an active role in his own story. Things sort of happen and he reacts to them.
Yeah, he definitely fits into his like moniker, like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like it's really just in his like sphere of influence. Like as things happen, like you said, he reacts.
But see, that character was built for it too. His whole mantra of with great power comes great responsibility. He does things because it's his responsibility. He feels it's his responsibility.
Yeah.
And with that type of mindset, you end up reacting to things as opposed to being proactive, like someone like Wolverine.
That's why I liked the new game so much, is because he still has that same sense of responsibility. However, when things go awry, in some of the like older comics that I've read with Spider-Man, or even some of the older films, he takes it like such to heart. Like, I caused this, I did this. This is why it's my responsibility, because of especially how it was depicted in the original Spider-Man trilogy with Uncle Ben. It's like, I caused this. And there's often times that it's like, no, you didn't cause this. Like, you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, kind of a thing. Like, in the game, in the new game, he's more apt to be like, I didn't cause this. You're just kind of a piece of shit of a person. Yeah. But it is still my responsibility to stop you because I'm the one that has the powers to do it.
Right.
And it's like, so he like bridges the two, and that's why I like the game so much, because I've never honestly been a huge Spider-Man fan. Like, the story arcs that you've recommended that I've read, and I own them even, I've loved. Like, they're great. I love those ones. But he's not one that I go to the comic book shop and buy all of them and want to read all of them. It's like, okay, well, my friend John loves Spider-Man. If he's going to recommend a good story arc for me, I'm going to read it. I know it's going to be good. But I'm not going to seek it out on my own. Right. The game does a great job, though, of kind of, like, bridging my expectation with those great series. So
I wouldn't say read them all, because I don't think you would like them all. But I would say read some of the old comics just to get a little more background on Peter Parker, just to see how he's matured and how he's changed over time.
Well, I have. I read the Gwen Stacy ones and when that happened and all that stuff. I think I read that through Comixology.
And it's not even just
the Superior Spider-Man I read. I love. That's one.
Great.
I even liked Spider Island afterward. Or was that before?
That was before.
It was before. I like Spider Island.
Was good because that's where Kane came. Kane ended up becoming his own character as opposed to just.
I also read all the Scarlet Spider ones that you gave me. Like, you're let me borrow.
Kane was a much better Scarlet Spider than Ben Reilly was.
Yeah. Which
they brought him. I saw that they brought him back too.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, and I have kept like abreast of stuff going on in the Spider-Man universe. I do want to read the the expanded Spider-Man universe that they're doing, the Spider-Verse.
Yeah. Well, you know,
and I want to watch that movie.
I want to watch that movie too.
I haven't had a chance.
What's funny about Spider-Man is, out of all the Marvel characters, at least from what I remember, someone can correct me on this and whatever comments you have for this thing.
Whatever. Yeah.
But he has the most.
We do host on Castbox. And it has a community built in, so there will be comments.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I want to see some hate. Anyways.
I'm sure there will be.
Right?
I'm waiting for some Rage Quit hate, because that's the first podcast of ours that went out.
God, I love that. But he has the most convoluted history ever. Fucking clones, time travel.
Yeah, the clone and time travel. Universe. That's really all you need, and it's complicated.
Dude, how many people know who Spider-Side is?
I don't.
Exactly. He's just he's another clone.
Really?
Yeah, and he's got some weird freaking powers in his.
I did like Spider-Man Noir though. That style I dug.
That was really good. That was really well written too.
It was really well written.
Did you read the 1602?
Yeah, I like that one too.
That was actually really well done too. I didn't like it as much as Noir, but a lot of that's just because of the style. I just didn't care for that style.
I like the
style. Peter Parquois or whatever.
Yeah, because it was like French.
Yeah,
because it was 1602.
Something like that.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, and I know you love like the What If like Marvel comics
so much. I almost have them all. Almost.
Do you?
Almost have them all of the first volume.
About top of that. That's impressive.
Of the first.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
The second volume, I've got probably about half of them.
Yeah, for me, the same kind of like I don't know what she's doing. The same kind of chord is struck with me with like DC Elseworlds and some of like the Noir and Marvel and stuff like that, where it's like it's not canon per se, but they kind of took their own spin and did shit on it.
And I don't I don't really care for DC all that much.
Yeah.
But their alternate universes, I love their alternate universes.
Oh yeah, I do too.
And again, this is going to be one that everyone would be more familiar with. But Injustice, I loved that universe so much.
Well, I
Reading
really
the
dug.
comics for that was amazing.
The comics are great for
Superman
Injustice.
becoming a Yellow Lantern. Was perfect.
I loved it when Batman got offered a Yellow Lantern ring and turned it down.
Yeah, he's like, screw that.
And then when that happened too, because it's like they're governed by fear, the Yellow Lanterns, I was like, yeah, it's perfect. That's the origin of Batman. He instills fear into, like thugs and criminals and his villains. Like, that makes perfect sense. And Batman's like, nah.
Well, I honestly think what they should have done with the Yellow Lanterns, instead of because they're pretty much evil.
Yeah, they've teamed up a few times with the other Lanterns, but not often, yeah. Primarily they're evil.
I think they should have made that a little more ambiguous. Not necessarily evil, but maybe a little more morally ambiguous. Like they'll have some characters who are evil and some who are more anti-heroes.
Yeah.
Like they'll still do a lot of good work, but it's more of they'll...
See, in that story arc that you're kind of like spitballing, they did with the Red Lanterns, which is really weird.
But in their anger.
Like, they're based in anger, yeah. And so that... when Atrocitus lost control of the Red Lanterns and Guy Gardner became like their leader, they enacted revenge on those that had been like.
By the way, smited. I find it freaking hilarious that Guy Gardner became a Red Lantern.
Why's that?
Because he never came off as someone who had a lot of anger in him, a lot of rage in him.
He was back in the day in his original comics. He was very like quick anger and like hot-headed and stuff. I feel like that was kind of the ginger like red-haired stereotype though, which is like a little prejudice now when you think about it.
Do you think he had a soul? The ginger is a Red Lantern.
That's what I thought. That's where you were going with. That's why I was a little speculative when I asked.
But no, he was just kind of a goofball though.
He was a little bit of a goofball. He was the jock, like
his comics were very campy.
Oh yeah, they were really campy.
And I thought they were hilarious.
Yeah, because it's like Guy Gardner was definitely campy. Jon Stewart was like all-American, black military man, very stoic. He was the architect, so he's like analytical and like.
I actually really like Jon Stewart.
I like Jon Stewart too. I think all the Green Lanterns are great.
He's my second favorite Green Lantern. First favorite being Kyle Rayner, which I know.
That's my second favorite.
He's your second favorite?
Yeah, Hal Jordan always like creeps back up.
I get
Kyle Rayner and Hal Jordan though, I'm not gonna lie, very close to neck, and if you ask me tomorrow, I could flip those two.
Right.
Like,
just Kyle Rayner was just kind of, he was a good mixture between Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner.
Well, he was our Green Lantern. Like, he was introduced in the 90s while we were growing up, and he was the artist. Like, he'd be called the millennial now, like, but I guess millennial then when it didn't exist. And
our White Lantern.
Yeah, the whole Ion, and I did a huge story on this actually for
Parallax.
the Examiner. Parallax with Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
And then the White Lantern, and like the kind of governance of godhood with mortality. Like, that was interesting. Like, that was really cool. Hal Jordan coming back though, after being Parallax, and overriding his ring and killing like the Mad Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard for me to get over, and that's like the only thing that kind of edges up. Like, he has always arisen to the occasion, and he's done stuff that no other Green Lantern has. But Kyle Rayner, same thing. Like, he mastered all the colors and became the White Lantern and a god eventually.
Yeah.
So it's like, did something that none of the other Green Lanterns ever did, you know?
Anyway, he was a master of emotion.
Yeah. And it was kind of great because it did fit into his, like, artistic kind of, like, personality. Because, like, he would go on artist retreats and stuff in his comics.
I will say this. I both love and hate how he died in the Injustice universe.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, he was just ambushed by the Yellow Lanterns. They took his ring and just ripped him to pieces.
Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of...
My favorite, though,
He went out
Lantern
like
of all time overall is Agent Orange. The fucking Orange Lantern is my favorite.
He's fucking hilarious.
He's hilarious.
Larfleeze?
Yeah.
He was great. I mean, he's freaking retarded.
He is retarded, yeah. He's just super funny.
But he's powerful.
He's ridiculously
And that's because of just the ring itself is green, so his power doesn't split at all.
No. Well,
although he was forced to.
He was, so he had his own series for a little bit, for a while, when, not DC's last reboot, since they did 2 of them back to back, the one before, the New 52.
Yeah, they've always done reboots.
Yeah, but usually they're like 20, 25 years apart, not
right.
3 years apart or whatever it was. Bless you. Bless you again.
Yeah, I'm an atheist. Dan Cook reference.
Yep. Yeah.
God damn it.
Everyone always says that because I sneeze 3 times when I get to the 3rd one. And she's like, you're fucking possessed.
Well, I had this happen at work.
Bless you again.
If we sneeze more than twice, I used to say bless you, and I'm like, you know what? Let the demons get you.
That's a good one.
They all start saying it now.
Yeah, if you told Ariel that, she would do that to me. Yeah, Larfleeze is great.
And tell her.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. She'll be up in like an hour and a half anyways. 2.5 hours. Yeah, they did a Larfleeze series for a while. Bless you again.
Excuse me.
And they, I don't know, during the course of the story, though, his power battery, his lantern, is taken away from him. And it's, like, lost, kind of. Well, he's been in such close proximity to his lantern for so long that he can charge his own ring. Like, he is his own, like, power battery and his own lantern now because he spent, like, because he's one of the oldest lanterns. Like, he was locked away on his planet for eons. The Guardians locked him away. And so, yeah, you think that it's like, oh, shit, like, he lost the one thing that he covets. Like, he's not going to be all-powerful anymore. And he's going to lose everything. And he thinks that briefly. Well, it turns out he can just charge his own ring whenever the fuck he wants because he's been sitting, clutching his fucking power battery for like a millennia. Which is great.
This is comic book logic, people.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's great. Because it's like the Green Lanterns always call their lanterns or their power batteries from like a pocket dimension.
Yeah.
Like they're close by, but they just like call them and then they can like recharge and then they like shove it away. But those have to like recharge with the main power battery. So it's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, we should do this thing.
However, Larfleeze doesn't need that. I also like the fact that he can any enemy that he defeats is trapped in his ring, and he can call like as a like construct, but they're a sentient like living construct.
God, can you imagine being one of those people like, seriously, again?
I know. Oh yeah, and they're pissed off at him. They hate him.
It's like, God damn it! All right, let's do this. Put your dukes up.
You have to battle him every time. Yeah, no. I don't know, Green Lanterns, like, that's one where I almost have a complete collection of that.
Well, and as I said before, I don't particularly care for DC, but I've read a lot of their comics, obviously. But Green Lantern, I love Green Lantern. I've always loved Green Lantern. I love Hal Jordan. I love John Stewart. John Stewart being, for a while, he was actually my favorite, but Kyle Rayner is to me the greatest.
Yeah.
John Stewart being second, then Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner. Like, keep in mind, like, all these are pretty close to each other because I like Guy Gardner.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I jockey back and forth definitely for Kyle Rayner and Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan, I think, is just more like classic or nostalgic. Some of the feats he's pulled off, I really dig. So
well, and he's,
now, he's at top for me.
Well, and he's the original.
He's the Silver Age, but you know, I mean, you get
he's
Alan Scott.
Yeah, which he's not really a Green Lantern. He's just some... What was his whole thing again?
His kryptonite's wood.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, you can take it down with a pencil.
Well, you know...
Ticonderoga.
Right?
Bye, Green Lantern.
Well, you take him out with wood, you take him out with a piece of wood, and the other Green Lanterns with yellow, so you can beat them all with freaking
Yeah, except they've expanded like the powers of like Hal
know.
Jordan and Kyle Rayner or something.
I get that, but it's still...
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, yeah, the color yellow or wood. So yeah,
a
number 2 pencil can take them both out.
Because that was the whole point of the Yellow Lanterns.
Well, they actually explained that. So what they ended up like retconning,
which I get. I get.
They always do that. Comics always do. Marvel and DC.
Oh yeah, they both do it. God, Marvel retconned a lot of things. Because before with Wolverine, it was heavily implied he didn't have a healing factor before all the experiments.
Yeah.
You didn't know about his past before.
Mm-hmm.
And I have What If comics that have him fighting an alternate Weapon X person.
Yeah.
And he kills this Weapon X. But he's heavily injured, and they show him watching TV, and he's got broken arms and everything else. And
he's not healing, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't fight with bone claws. He fought with these, not sais. I can't think of what they're called. They're just one blade that he's holding.
Okay.
But they're not like a sword. They're just coming off from his knuckles. He fights like he has claws.
Yeah, it's like he has a handle, and the blade comes still between his knuckles and fingers, or a blade.
So that's a retcon there, because it was never. He wasn't James Howlett until
well, they spun off
Wolverine Origins.
Dog because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, his other brother, which people don't talk about.
Well, and that was another thing too, and I should look into this. So I'm not 100% sure on this. This is more something my brother used to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Was that it was implied that Sabretooth was Wolverine's father in the early comics.
That is true. Like Wolverine is also one of the almost like complete collections I have that was implied in the early comics. It was never directly stated.
It was never directly.
But it was implied that Sabretooth was, and then later when they introduced Dog, it was like that was his like half brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then they retconned later that Sabretooth was, and it was like a whole convoluted thing.
Hey, look, another Marvel character with a convoluted history.
Yeah.
Although his was built upon much later, whereas Spider-Man's was.
Yeah, Wolverine, like I've brought this up in like other podcasts or even reviews, is like in relative terms a fairly new comic book character. I mean, not as new as like Harley Quinn or things like that, but it's like you're talking about 1979 he was introduced in Hulk, and then it was like he had his like famous 4-part miniseries in the early 80s. So it's like relatively. I've got 2 of them.
I have all 4.
I got 2 of the 4.
That's I love that series.
I do too.
I also got the original Deadpool one too.
That's cool.
The
coveted one I want to get is like the first appearance of Wolverine, that Hulk one, which is ridiculously expensive.
I think the comic book shop actually has that.
Do they?
Yeah, I think they have that, but again, I think it's expensive.
Oh,
That original design for his costume was horrible.
It was bad.
It was a beginning versions of the yellow and black one that everyone's familiar with.
Yeah.
My favorite one is orange and black, or orange and brown.
Yeah, I'm partial to the fucking wife beater and like jeans or whatever that he wears, like where he's just like stripped down, like I'm fucking Canadian, like or something.
What's better is the fucking brown jacket and jeans that he used to wear. That is a plaid shirt underneath.
I do like the X-Force one too, which is the black and silver, black and gray one, based off of his old yellow one.
Yeah,
that one's good.
Which I found all my Alpha Flight comics.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Alpha Flight's another one that's under the radar.
It is. Well, the writer...
Canadian Avengers.
You're right. Well, yeah, pretty much.
What's the British one? Because it's like Captain Britain.
Yeah, Captain Britain's the leader. There's a Spider-Man that's Captain Britain.
And there's the Chinese one, too. They're like the...
Yeah, that one's got
Seven Great something.
What's his name? Sunfire is the leader of that one?
Yeah.
But he died.
Well, but they have Chinese Superman. Yeah.
God, I'm so disconnected.
Fuck, this is old knowledge too. Yeah. This is like DC New 52 shit where they tried to do that.
So I picked up a comic at Panda Express.
What?
and it brought back an old Marvel superhero who is kind of garbage.
What's like when they tried to like DC tried to bring back like the Ray and stuff like that, where it's like this is a good conversation because like you're way more of a Marvel fan, I'm way more of a DC fan, so like you know a lot of the obscure Marvel ones that I don't know about, and it's like DC obscure characters, fuck, I'm down for it. Like the Ray, fucking great, and they rebooted him like 5 years ago or something. But what's the Panda Express one?
I'm trying to remember.
At least it's not Hemogoblin.
No, not Hemogoblin. Shit.
So bad. So bad.
The Green Turtle, that's his name. So yeah,
I've never heard of that.
So he originally came out, I want to say in like the 70s or 80s. His power, the Green Turtle was created in 1944 for Blazing Comics actually.
Oh damn!
But I'm pretty sure it was in Marvel Comics at one point because I remember reading those comics and picking this up and being, what the hell?
Yeah.
Which is Shadow Hero Comics #1. His power is he can't be shot. So if someone shoots him with a gun,
so
or
he's
something,
a turtle with a hard shell.
Yeah, well, the bullets like redirect.
Oh, so they don't even strike him like he has a shell.
Well, he has a familiar that protects him essentially.
Oh, is it a turtle?
Kind of.
What the hell is he called the turtle?
I'm pretty sure it's a turtle, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been so long since I've actually read the original comics.
Yeah, we're getting into Squirrel Girl territory.
This is more obscure than Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl, at least she was in a Avengers team.
That's
which
true.
is Salt Lake City Avengers.
Oh, this is a rare one, too.
You got Salt Lake City Avengers? Please tell me you got that.
West Coast Avengers, but no.
Oh, you got the pop. The pop of Squirrel Girl. Did you know she defeated Dr. Doom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that always makes me laugh. Squirrel Girl she's baked.
I got that from our...
Bacon and eggs, man. She's bacon and eggs.
I've never heard that. That's awesome. Did you ever see the mock-up images of Anna Kendrick? Who's one of my favorite actresses as Squirrel Girl?
I would love...
That would be fucking perfect. It would be so
That'd be
good.
great. God, Anna Kendrick.
Yeah, that's Anna Kendrick. Yeah.
Enough said. Just enough said.
Yeah, you don't need much.
She would make an amazing Squirrel Girl. She would make an amazing most things.
Yeah.
we won't go too much further into that.
It's not that kind of podcast.
No, we don't need to get all creepy. I'm okay getting creepy, but we don't need to get all creepy.
Yeah. Not publicly creepy.
Don't worry, in our private life...
That's a different story.
You would not like us.
Yeah. The funny part is we're both married. That's the great part.
I'm trying to find the Marvel stuff for the Green Turtle.
I've never heard of the Green Turtle.
Well, you want
I
to
have now.
You want to see what he looks like?
Fuck yeah.
There you go.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Right?
He's got a giant turtle on his cape.
Yeah.
That's great. It reminds me of, what's the dude from the Watchmen?
That's just familiar, by the way, that black thing.
Oh, like the shadow dude?
Yeah.
With the evil smile? Fuck, what was that called? It's alluded to in the film and the original Watchmen series. He's not in it, though. He's got a similar, like, character design. He had was he the Hood? Or the Hooded Mask? Or the Hooded Justice? Or something like that?
I don't know.
He was supposedly the gay lover of one of the other Watchmen, which is also just alluded to. I think it was the Hooded Justice. I think it was the Hooded Justice.
Okay.
But yeah, the Hooded Justice, if I'm right, has a very similar character design to that, which is funny because that would have the Watchmen was 40 years later after.
You ready for the character description?
Yes.
So it's character history, actually. Because in the original comics, I guess the turtle silhouette or the black silhouette was actually never explained, but it's explained in the Panda Express ones.
Oh, okay.
So the Green Turtle aided the Chinese in guerrilla warfare against the Japanese invaders in World War II. He wore a green cowl and a cloak with turtle shell design. Most origin stories around the comics say that Hing initially wanted to make him an overtly Chinese hero, but his publisher would not allow this, believing there would not be a sufficient market for an Asian superhero. And it sounds
wow.
I mean, that sounds like 1944.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
So he never drew the character without his mask. He had a sidekick, Burma Boy, a young beggar.
Burma Boy.
Burma Boy. A young beggar whom the Green Turtle rescued from execution by the Japanese army.
Burma doesn't even exist anymore. It's Bangladesh. Like that's amazing.
1944.
Yeah, no, I know.
The Green Turtle had no special powers, but was a skilled fighter and flew a turtle plane. He flew a turtle plane.
That's amazing.
He wore a large flowing cape with a Green Turtle emblem and was occasionally depicted with a huge shadowy black turtle silhouette rearing behind him. However, the significance of this was never established.
Huh.
And there was a 6-part series in 2014, which I'm assuming was the Panda Express one, which that turtle ended up being a familiar in that one.
Oh, okay.
I could have sworn he was in some Marvel comics as well. Burma Boy.
What is the publisher on it, or what was the publisher on it?
Blazing Comics. His first appearance was Blazing Comics #1, which that was FDC.
Okay, so one of those kind of offshoot ones is before they consolidated.
Yeah, but it was 1944.
Yeah, they had a lot of weird ones then during that area. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
I bet one of the big two snapped them up.
Well, I'm pretty sure Marvel had. This is a newer design.
Still relatively the same.
Yeah, still they stayed true to him. And he's Asian now. He's definitely Asian now.
Well, it's kind of like they introduced a Muslim Green Lantern.
Right.
Like that was like a big thing.
I like how
Chinese Superman was another one.
I like how this site describes him. He's an Asian superhero with a lucha libre wrestler outfit.
Yeah. That's
like,
an adequate description, actually.
It is
does
an
look like that, yeah.
Hood
of Justice was kind of the same thing. You got the mask, like you got the tights, but you don't really have like tops or bottoms.
He has his own plane, a cave for his home base, and a Robin-like sidekick called Burma Boy.
I want to read about Burma Boy. Like, to be honest, like, was there Burma Boy comics? Like, because I would snap that shit.
Right.
It's like Aqualad. Like, bring Aqualad back.
Turtle head is an insult in Chinese, says Yang, who is Chinese American, and adds that his parents would always tell him to not wear green hats. There's a saying about wearing green hats, which means you are a cuckold.
Whoa!
Like, all right.
Yeah, that escalated very quickly.
Very quickly.
Did not know that was a thing. Which that term really has only like taken off recently in American culture.
Right.
I mean, it existed, but it's not something that was in our lexicon in the last like 5-10 years. It has been.
I'm looking. I could have sworn, like, this someone doesn't tell me. I guess I was wrong. I could have sworn he was Marvel at one point.
Maybe. Could be just like an
it.
obscure reference kind of a thing.
Right. Well, whatever, I guess. I like how his sidekick has the same outfit, except for he's wearing a red shirt with a turtle on the chest. And the green turtle just has no shirt. He's just wearing underwear and a cape.
That's still amazing.
That's amazing.
Context link now. Don't do that. Yeah, I love our conversations about like obscure comic book characters because like we both read comics for years now, and you always fill me in on like the weird like Marvel ones that I've never fucking heard of before,
or weird ones that apparently were neither.
Well, yeah, they can be just obscure ones in general.
Yeah, I could have sworn he was Marvel, but I guess not.
Yeah, for me, I definitely latched on to DC in particular. Mm-hmm. And so, and some of the more obscure DC characters that were like, you know, coming out during reboots that were trying to be rebooted, which were inevitably canceled because they really don't have the fan base for it. I totally snapped up every single one of them and read.
Dude, DC had some interesting obscure characters, like, what, Crazy Quilt?
Yep.
God.
There's weird...
His powers, he can see in color.
Well, there's, like, weird ones, too, that are, like, always, like, in the background for a lot of major DC story arcs. that they have just like the one coming to mind is the Prophet,
Okay.
where it's like he's like the unseen prophet. He's pretty much like the Watcher of like the DC universe, but not as cool. And it's like other DC characters have become Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew.
Yes, I have some of those comics. If you want to read them,
I will. That's a DC one I've not heard of. Discover the origins of the heroic Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew. When Superman tries to stop a mysterious beam from Pluto from attacking the Earth, an accident leads to citizens from a planet inhabited by animals to gain superpowers. Is that planet in our solar system? Because otherwise the beam from Pluto really doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't. This is
But it kind of
shit.
alludes that it's like another planet, like outside of our solar system. Like, give me like a Venetian zoo planet, and I'll buy it. I guess.
Venetian zoo planet. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's kind of like I love this idea, and I've written about it before. But Venetian cloud cities. I want this to happen.
I know you know of Hawk and Dove, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hawk and Dove they rebooted too for quite a while.
How about the Interior 5?
Yes.
Well, don't sound too excited.
Yeah. Hawk and Dove was interesting because they were like the embodiment of War and Peace, so I thought that was kind of cool. Like I like that. Although they've tried to get their own series off the ground a ton of times now, and it's never fucking worked.
Hey, at least they're better than Super Hip.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Anything's better than Super Hip.
I feel like a Bizarro Superman would work, or like even a fucking Iron Steel would work better than Hawk and Dove, though. Which is sad, because I like Hawk and Dove.
I would say I like Hawk and Dove.
Oh, I do
It
too.
actually kind of reminded me a lot of Cloak and Dagger, which are very different characters, don't get me wrong, but instead of having a War and Peace, they kind of have the whole light and dark dynamic.
Yeah, good versus evil.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's kind of what it breaks down to. No,
And
Hawk and Dove, I read those comics when they rebooted it last.
Did you watch the Cloak and Dagger series at all?
I watched the first episode.
Was it any good?
It was
Because I never actually watched it. 'Cause that was a Hulu one, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I think it's on Amazon Prime though. Now you can watch it,
Okay.
and you can watch like tidbits or teasers from it. Because you like Cloak and Dagger actually is one of the reasons I wanted to watch that one, and I watched the first episode. It was very much like that young adult X-Men television series they did.
Is it The Runaways?
No, not that one. The one before it.
That was the one before it.
There was one before. I don't. Was it Legion? No, not Legion. It was before that too. Fuck. There's one where they're like hiding. It's
That sounds like The Runaways.
it's similar to it. It wasn't the Runaways though. I know that. I'm trying to remember.
I remember really liking The Runaways, but that was kind of a series I grew out of.
I didn't. X-Men TV series. I don't think I've watched The Runaways. I've read some of the comics though.
They're not great comics. Those ones are written more for
I think it was The Gifted.
teenagers. Oh, The Gifted. Well, The Gifted came out after, didn't it?
I don't know, regardless, that was the one I was thinking of. It was The Gifted.
Is that any good?
That one I watched the first season of. It got too young adult for me. Kind of like the synopsis of that book that you read, the Prelude. I like the X-Men characters the same way you do, like separately, but I'm not a huge fan of the X-Men. But I do usually like watch all of the films and or try to watch TV shows. I tried to watch that one. First few episodes really good, kind of gripping, but then it kind of turns into like a teen soap. And Cloak and Dagger was the same kind of way. Okay. It was like it had good like premise and a good start, but it just kind of became that teen soap, and it was like, yeah, I'm not like I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it was like it's just not my market. Like I'm a 30-year-old white dude. Like I don't need a teen soap. Like I'm sorry. I'm sure there's definitely an audience for it, especially if they're. I don't know if they're still continuing. I'm sure they are.
See, there's let me look here.
But it just didn't really grip me after a little bit. Cloak and Dagger is the same way. I was definitely actually intrigued and interested by it because I know how much you like Cloak and Dagger. So I was like, oh shit, they're making a TV series off of like one of my best friends, obscure comic book characters that he loves. That's legit. I'm gonna check this out. And then it was like, oh fuck.
See, I didn't watch it because I feared it was gonna be bad. Because as much as I like Cloak and Dagger, in comparison to even other obscure Marvel characters, they weren't really that great.
Mm-hmm.
But I still really liked them, and a part of that might just be because I grew up reading their comics.
Yeah.
At least they're better than Slapstick.
Fair enough.
Although I would watch TV series with Slapstick.
I feel like we're getting like Toxic Avenger like categories.
Hey,
so bad they're good.
They made Toxic Avenger movies.
How many were there? Was there 4? 3?
I think there was 4. There was also an animated series.
I didn't know about the animated series. I think there's 4 of them.
That series is great and horrible. Horribly great.
Horribly great.
And I love them. I'll have to bring them.
It's like going back and watching the Spawn movie.
God, I love that movie.
I do too. It's
Movie
so bad
sucks.
though. It's awful. I love that movie though, but it's so bad. And then he's gonna be a featured player character in the new Mortal Kombat.
Awesome.
Finally, yeah. Which
That's
been
right up his
rumored.
alley.
Yeah, he's been rumored for the Mortal Kombat series.
He's fucking
For ages.
overpowered for that series though at the same time.
Yeah.
Spawn is... He became God and then stepped down. He's like,
Yeah.
nah, I'm bored.
I was a bigger fan of Witchblade, which tied intimately to Spawn.
I was a bigger fan of Witchblade, but probably for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah, fair enough. Witchblade I always dug though. Spawn, that movie I liked, because I hadn't read any of those comics.
I loved
when I
those
saw
comics.
that movie the first time.
You know, the anti-hero trope, the whole anti-hero trope, they usually what it ends up being is just a bastard who helps people. That's usually what the trope tends to be for that.
That's why out of all the Netflix Marvel series they did, Jessica Jones is my favorite.
I was about to ask what you thought of all the Defenders, which, by the way, Iron Fist sucked. But
Iron Fist was awful.
But Jessica Jones,
I like Iron Fist as a character and in the comic books, but Jessica Jones, fuck, my favorite.
That is my favorite as well.
It is. Jessica Jones, my babe. I'm down. Jessica Jones is great. That series I think was well written. I like that it was dark. The
ending of that first season.
Fantastic.
That was the greatest.
Well, and David Tennant as the Purple Man, great fucking villain.
God, I was so glad the Purple Man was there.
Yeah,
that Purple Man is such a great character.
Here, let's take a shot. I got something to show you too. It'll be good
right.
for the podcast. I don't know if I've shown you this. Is that your favorite then of them?
It is.
Okay.
And it's a toss-up after that between Luke Cage and Daredevil. Luke Cage, I just didn't like the very first episode.
Luke Cage is number 2 for me for sure.
I just didn't like the very first episode. It almost turned me off because of the whole kind of sex scene that was happening at the beginning.
That's fair.
But I really love that series.
Luke Cage was definitely number 2 for me.
He was such a... He was just a very well-written character in that movie. There you go. Perfect. Oh, not movie. Series. Why did I say movie? Because we're talking about Marvel Purple Man.
Yeah. And then the vinyl for the Jessica Jones soundtrack for our listeners is Lavender as well.
There you go.
Brilliant soundtrack, though. I love it. I listen to this one regularly.
Daredevil, I know you didn't really care much for it, but I really liked Daredevil.
Oh, I actually really liked the series, and I liked Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil, quite a bit. I just don't like Daredevil as a character, and I really don't like his comics too much. I've read actually quite a few of them, though.
I've actually never cared for his comics. He was kind of a weaker character in the Marvel Universe. However...
The boxing element with his father I like, and then they've done some like kind of origin-esque stories with that. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed. I like those. But I do like boxing, so it kind of fits into that.
I feel the same way about Daredevil as I do about Ghost Rider. Because Ghost Rider's main comics weren't particularly that great.
Yeah.
I still like them and read them because it's a fucking flaming skull.
Well, and visually and aesthetically, they're very cool.
Yeah.
And I think the first Ghost Rider film was pretty decent. Cheesy as fuck, but decent.
I'll go with that. I mean,
the second one I thought was awful. I thought it was bad.
I don't think Nicolas Cage makes a good Ghost Rider, unfortunately.
I don't think Nicolas Cage makes a great anything nowadays, and I used to love him.
I like him in 2 movies.
Say Matchstick
What?
Say Matchstick Men for one of them.
God, I forgot about that movie. 3 movies. Matchstick Man, Face Off.
Oh, Face Off's great. That's a good one.
And
1996's Face Off.
Right? That movie made 0 sense, but I still loved it.
Travolta and fucking Nick Cage.
I just remember Nick Cage going, gotta take his face off.
John Travolta, that's when he was good too.
Yeah, John Travolta was good in that too.
Yeah,
And
John Travolta sucks now, but...
I thought he was really good in Punisher.
That was weird because that was nearly an uncredited role.
Yeah.
Which was ridiculous because it was like, he was big at the time. John Travolta was. And it was like, fuck. Like, you're the villain and you kind of have a bit role in this movie. But yeah, he did great in that.
He did great in that. Thomas Jane did great in that.
Thomas Jane I really like too, and he's kind of dropped off the radar.
I like that whole scene where he's torturing the one guy, but not really.
Yeah.
He's searing a steak and then putting a popsicle on his back. Yeah.
I really like that movie. I like that one a lot.
That was a really good movie. It was a cheesy movie.
It was cheesy, yeah.
But I loved it. I loved it when he fought that big-ass Russian.
Yeah.
The Russian, Punisher grabs a gun, the Russian slams the gun against the table and just bent. That is one of my favorite scenes. I don't know why. And it's when he's looking, it's like,
have you seen the newest Mission Impossible?
I haven't.
So, there's a fight scene. So, Henry Cavill's in it, who plays Superman. And there's a scene with him and Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. And this Japanese or Chinese guy, I think he's Japanese. And they're in a bathroom at this club.
Okay.
I think they're in Paris at the time. I think. European city. And there's like a big club, like atmosphere kind of going on. There's a lot of loud music and stuff. So Henry Cavill and Tom Cruise are like tracking this guy. They follow him into the bathroom. They wait till everybody leaves, and then there's this epic fucking fight scene. Japanese dude knows like all sorts of martial arts and shit, is beating the crap out of Henry Cavill, who's a big fucking dude, and Tom Cruise, who's a small dude.
Just think of Dolph Lundgren fighting what's-his-face in Expendables.
Yeah. And this is kind of what I'm alluding to,
yeah.
Like, in that Punisher scene. So, there's a point where, like, Tom Cruise gets the shit beaten out of him, and Henry Cavill has been... He already had the shit beat out of him kind of a thing, and he's, like... He's like, not knocked out. I don't want to say that, but he's, like, indisposed, I guess. And so, like, Tom Cruise fights him, and then he loses, and then by the time that happens, like, Henry Cavill gets up. And Henry Cavill's, like, 6'3", 6'4", he fucking plays Superman.
Yeah.
And he's, like, beefed the fuck up to play Superman, and he's beefy in this fucking movie, too. And you can tell, because it's, like, you have the Japanese dude who's, like, the villain, I guess, in that scene. Who knows, martial arts. And then Tom Cruise, who plays that kind of James Bond-esque character, so it's like he's good with hand-to-hand combat, but he's not a big dude, and he doesn't know martial arts. And then you have Henry Cavill, who like fucking stands up, and then he squares up like a boxer, and he just fucking goes to town on this guy. And that always reminds me of that Punisher scene. Because it's like, that one's like the cheesy version, and then you get the Mission Impossible version from like 2018 or whatever it was.
God, I remember a movie I watched as a kid, and I can't remember this movie, and I've never bothered to look for it, obviously, because now I'm reminded of it.
Yeah.
But I remember this guy, it was a white guy talking to an Asian guy. That's an important detail.
Okay.
He's talking to him, it's like, can't you use, like, Kung Fu on him or something like that? It's like, oh, just because I'm fucking Chinese, I know Kung Fu.
Oh, fuck, what is that from? I've seen that, yeah.
And he's like, well, do you? It's like, of course, I've learned it since I was 5.
Yeah. I've seen that movie. I don't know what that is from, but I've seen that.
It's like, I've learned it since I was 5. Of course I did. I'm fucking Chinese.
Yes.
It's like he just accused him of being racist and then confirmed it.
Yeah, on top of it. I watched
I love that stuff.
YouTube video today where it was Micah Chen, who I talked about when we went to Taco John's, who does strictly dumpling, and he travels the world and eats and all that good stuff. Got a good YouTube channel.
I could travel the world and eat. Think I could make money doing that?
Yeah, you probably could.
Is it just because I look weird?
No, it's just going to other countries that most Americans won't go to and eating. People watch that shit.
I'll go to Ethiopia. We'll start there.
Okay, that sounds good. We have the Ethiopian like restaurant in the flour mill.
No. We're not doing the Ethiopian restaurant. We gotta go straight to Ethiopia.
No, I agree. I'm saying, yeah. I think there's a market for that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
Maybe I can meet Joby over there.
But it was like him featuring in a Try Guys video where their challenge was to eat 400 dumplings between 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 2 Asian guys. There was Eugene of Try Guys, and then there was Mikey Chen, who was like featured in the video, and then 3 other white dudes. And both the Asian guys ate over 100 dumplings on their own. Everybody else didn't even make it to 100. Not even close. And it was like, yeah, we're reaffirming stereotypes.
You know, I was talking to Megan's dad about this actually, and you know, stereotypes are there for a reason. It's because people reaffirm them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate sometimes, but at the same time,
In that video, it was impressive though. The C2 guys, like, who gives a fuck whether they're Asian or not, eat over 100 dumplings. Holy crap! And they were soup dumplings on top of it. So it's like those are gonna be weighty on the stomach, like no matter who you are.
God, there was a YouTube.
That's
video.
impressive.
There was a YouTube video I was watching a while back, and I wish I could remember who it was, but they're talking about making a movie, and they needed ninjas
Yeah.
for the movie, and they had like a bunch of white people, and a bunch of Asian people. And so they asked the white people, like, well, you guys want to be ninjas? Like, whoa, that's an Asian thing. Why aren't you asking us? Like, okay, do you guys want to be ninjas? Like, whoa, just because we're Asian, we have to be ninjas?
God. No matter how it cuts, it's wrong.
Right. It's racist either way.
Yeah. Oh my god. So over the top. Oh god. Oh god.
I love it.
That's funny. We've hardly talked about video games at all.
This
It's
is a podcast
fantastic.
about video games, right?
I can't wait
So
to
all of
title
these-
this and write the description.
All of these things are in video games. We'll just say that right now. This is all video games.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the YouTube shows,
The Guardian
films,
Legend, that's the video game.
the cars, the book club, all in video games.
Yeah, these are all in like video
They're
games.
VR
the Guardian
Sims.
Legend for VR Sims for the NES.
Yeah.
The Guardian Legend.
I guess
And
we can
baseball.
close out with like going full circle and talk about games that people may not know. Because you got the 2 bitchin' NES ones, which I can't wait to play.
Yeah, the Guardian Legend. That's like a mixture between what I consider the original Legend of Zelda and Galaga, because it's pretty much.
Which is an interesting like hybrid.
Well, just to explain, like they have levels that are ship battle levels, like Galaga, where you're going up a screen, you're shooting a bunch of enemies, and then as soon as you're done with that level, your ship transforms into whatever like mecha thing, and you walk around this area, and you end up shooting a bunch of other enemies, gathering items to unlock other areas of the game.
Interesting.
That bring you to other Galaga-like style of gameplay. So it's very much, to me, it was very much Zelda-esque.
Okay.
And then Base Wars.
Cyber
like-
Stadium series.
That's a baseball
Wars.
fighting game.
Is there more in the Cyber Stadium series other than Base Wars?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay, I'm just curious now.
The
Ultra
publisher-
games though
because-
sounds super fucking familiar.
Well, Ultra did a lot.
Yeah, I was like,
Ultra
did they
did a
pump
lot of
out
games.
shit? Because
Oh,
I know
yeah.
NES was like famous for that, but
Yeah. But Ultra did a lot of shit. I want to say, did they do Skate or Die? I want to say they did Skate or Die. I have to look.
didn't Nintendo?
They did Ninja Turtles.
No, okay. Didn't Nintendo change their policy on that? So then a lot of publishers or studios at the time like split off into these like weird name studios so they could still publish more games.
I don't know. I actually don't know. But
I could totally be pulling this out of my ass or from thin air, but
I know
I know there was like I think there was like no restrictions on the amount of games a publisher could publish.
Well, what it was during the game crash.
Yeah, right
the
before.
ET COD, not COD, but with Tip of the Iceberg 4.
Yeah.
You had like hundreds of games that were essentially rip-offs of other games that were released for Atari and other systems and the like. It was just a flood of games. And Nintendo essentially started the idea...
Did they put a cap?
Well, they didn't... I'm not sure if they put a cap, but they started the idea of licensing games.
Oh, okay.
Because before it was pretty much a guy...
That's super fucking innovative and then true to now.
Yeah.
Because of what they did then.
Yeah, because before people would just make a game in their basement and then release it for Atari.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
That's where you get Commie Overlords from space, which is just Space Invaders.
Yeah. No copyright kind of like infringement or licensing, like
Right.
you said. Yeah.
And there might be more to it than that. I mean, I'm not...
Yeah.
All I know is I liked the games after Atari, but I didn't grow up with Atari either.
Yeah, and I didn't either. I mean, I've definitely fucked around with an Atari and played like the classics, but from my understanding, reading about it, and like there was that documentary that was done a few years back where they were digging up the dump site of the ET.
I was surprised that was actually a real thing.
I was too, because they had so many of those cartridges in their warehouse, they ended up just burying them in a landfill. And then there was a documentary about it where they supposedly found where they were, and then they dug it up. Like they found that stash.
Yeah, and it wasn't just ET. They found Atari.
It was a whole bunch of
everything
stuff.
else.
Yeah, it was like everything in that warehouse that was just dumped after the video game crash, and they just needed to get rid of it for space to make money elsewhere. They buried.
I just love the fact that this urban legend ended up being true.
Yeah, and it was an urban legend for a long time, and then some folks pieced stuff together, and then they ended up doing that documentary where they found it and dug it up.
I have ET.
Because it was like brushed under the rug.
I have
like
ET in a box with everything.
Yeah?
Not worth anything.
Well, no, of course not.
I just collect shit, that's all.
I'm pretty sure from what I've read, though, that the NES was the first to put a cap on publishers and the amount of things that they could publish per year. So it's like, we'll use modern examples, but if you had ZeniMax and Bethesda, publishing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games every year onto a specific console or every console, we'll say the Nintendo Switch to keep it modern, would have drummed that down to you can only publish 25 games a year to combat that because of the video game crash.
Yeah, maybe.
And you can totally correct me in the comments. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like anything in here, just
yeah. I was like, I'm not gonna be bothered if I'm like wildly off. And you're like, no,
yell at
this
me.
is how it was.
I came on here just so you all could hate me.
Yeah, that's always good,
dude.
It's still PR.
Hate makes money.
It does.
Look at Paris Hilton.
I got a shit ton of money from that Wolverine article. I didn't bring that up. But every hate mail I got was $1.
And you got $200.
$200
a week.
So my games I'm gonna mention.
All right, let's get some games in here. I'll have to bring some more. Those ones I want you to try out. We'll have to review some of these.
Yes.
They're all better than Hide-Lide.
I haven't talked to you about it, but we should do review videos for ASI with our podcast.
Sounds good. Whatever you guys do not play Hide-Lide. Those games at the NES, Super Nintendo, and I think it was Sega Saturn, they are horrible games. Horrible, horrible games. I mean, they're still better than Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but they're horrible games. Unlike Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, though, I knew how to play these games. I still have a cat here. Your cat apparently likes me. What do we got for the Vita?
I'm going to mention Soul Sacrifice.
I love Soul Sacrifice.
For the PlayStation Vita. Yeah, I think it's a really great game.
Weren't they making another one of those?
They did Soul Sacrifice Delta, which was like the special edition.
Crusaders of Might and Magic. I love this game.
Yeah, that's another one that I think people missed in the PS1 generation.
Well, this was a 3DO game originally. I'm pretty sure it was originally on 3DO, which, by the way, was a horrible system. But
that I've not played.
I have that system, and it's garbage.
For me, I bring out the Vita one. Like, I wanted something a little bit more modern, I guess, in discussion. I think Vita players will probably recognize it. Maybe.
What you should get is, was it Freedom Wars? I love that game. Do you have it? Oh my god, tell me you have it. I love that game. That game sucks and I love it. Yes! Game.
Okay, well, I almost grabbed that one, actually.
This is one of my favorite games for the Vita. Freedom Wars.
So to talk about the Vita, it's definitely dead in the water now, but there's still a lot of like kind of diehard fans playing it. If for whatever reason you haven't, yeah, I still do. It's charging on top of the
We should
Kindle.
play this game together.
We should. I'd be totally down with
There's
that.
an online support for this game.
It is.
Fucking A. I'm not very far in it anymore, though.
I'm not either.
Like, trying to...
Like, I really like it, but I never finished it or got very far.
There's a little... I'm sorry, I'm going to be overzealous because I love this
No,
game.
go for it. Yeah, no.
So there's
We're talking about obscure games that people may not know. Like, go for it. Take the stage.
So you're a character in this game that's called a sinner, which is pretty much, from what I understand, the military of a post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
Yeah, and you can choose your region. I chose LA because America.
I chose LA as well.
Yeah, right?
For
America.
the same reason.
But
It was like, I think that was like the only U.S.
I
state that
think
was
so.
close to us.
I think so.
Like, maybe New York was in there or something, but it was
No.
like, regardless, we're West Coast, so... Yeah, I chose LA.
So pretty much you play a sinner, which is apparently the standing military and also apparently criminals of some kind, though that's never explained, at least from how far I've gotten.
Same here.
But you start off and your character gets beat up in this battle and ends up losing his memory, which apparently is a crime.
Yes.
And he gets a 1,000,000-year sentence for losing his memory.
Yes.
And so with the 1,000,000-year sentence, you get a bunch of privileges revoked, which include, but are not limited to, being able to lay down and walk a certain amount of steps in the room that you are given, which is like a 3x5. Like,
It's like a little cell.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much room to move. And the game sets you up to kind of fail, because if you break those rules, and some of which you may not know about, it adds to your sentence.
Yep.
And so in the very beginning, it's very much structured to like show you the consequences of your, like, I'm going to do air quotes here, actions. So like if you walk too much, like you get 10 years tacked onto your sentence.
Yep. And apparently the whole idea is you get more and more years knocked off your sentence by doing more things for your, they call it panopticon. I can never pronounce it.
I think it's Panopticon actually, yeah.
Something like that, which is the standing
The
city
city
states
that,
or
yeah,
whatever.
that you pick. So for us, LA.
Yeah, and as you get more and more years taken off, and you get more and more rewards for the missions, you can purchase privileges like being able to lay down or being able to walk and being able to go out of your cell, and then after that, being able to talk to people.
Yeah, like your like headquarters or like home base like starts to open up with the more privileges you buy.
Right, and you get to meet more and more sinners who have more or less privileges than you, which for some reason, you go and talk to ones that had close to 1,000,000 years on your sentence. For some reason, they don't get anything added onto their sentence when you talk to them.
Which
they
is
talk
weird.
Back, yeah.
It's like they've like drummed up so many years for imprisonment and then come back down that they're still at 1,000,000.
Right.
So they have the privileges, but they still have a huge sentence.
And they're outside their cells.
Yeah, which is weird. Like, yeah.
From what
As far as I got into the game too, like, which sounds probably about the same place. Like, it isn't really explained. Like, at least
Right.
not well in the beginning.
And then you find out that everything in this series is a resource, from its people to your memories.
Yes.
And the people which are pretty much the citizens. That's what they're called. They're just called citizens.
Yeah, they're
aren't
just
they?
citizens, yeah.
They seem to be more like scientists
Mm-hmm.
and less just basic citizens. But you spend most of your time rescuing them from things called what are they called? Extractors, I want to say, or something like that. But they have different forms, and they trap these citizens in them. And you're supposed to break them out and rescue them. And what's cool is when you fight these giant robot things, whatever they're called, you can cut off limbs and get materials for them, and you can use those. You can keep those materials for yourself, depending on your sentence level.
Yeah.
If you try to keep things that you're not authorized to keep, then you get more added onto your sentence.
Yeah, you get
But
penalized for it.
But you can also use the materials that you are allowed to keep to reduce your sentence.
Yeah.
Or you can keep them for yourself and craft weapons and things like that.
Yeah, it's like
to
the
help you in
upgrade
future
system. And it's got good, like, balancing.
Yeah. And, like, the game itself is very cheesy. And it's, I'm pretty sure most people consider it garbage, but I loved it. It's like a mixture between a third-person shooter and a hack and slash.
It's actually, like, known as the last AAA Vita game.
Yeah.
which is really weird.
Is it really?
Yeah.
This was a AAA game?
That's how it was described.
I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah.
Although
Because before we got Uncharted,
game.
Golden Abyss, we got a Killzone on the Vita. A lot of good like first party stuff that was made specifically for the Vita. However, kind of little well known, but it has been described as like the last AAA big game for the Vita.
God, I love this game.
Yeah, Freedom Wars is great. I would definitely recommend that if you have a Vita or if you've been thinking about buying one on the cheap. Like, scoop up Freedom Wars.
Yeah, pretty much the reason I get systems like the Vita or the PSP is because of these obscure games like this.
Same.
I mean, there's a lot of hidden gems.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily call this one a hidden gem. It's just a game that I like. And I know
it is pretty obscure, though. I mean, I think it's more obscure because I think Vita gamers are more obscure, especially now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll reiterate. Like, if you're thinking about buying a Vita because they're probably pretty cheap, they're finally discontinued in Japan. Scoop one up before the expense goes through the roof, and get Freedom Wars.
Yeah, I think it's like a $10 game now.
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's not very expensive at all.
I almost wanted to buy a bunch of copies and just give them to people.
Yeah, no, it's a good one to play, and it's the online kind of aspect of it is cool too.
Yeah, I haven't tried the online part of it. I've just I've played on my own. And I like it. I like it quite a bit. You can customize your character. Of course, it's hard to customize your character from looking anything outside a boy band.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can customize, but it is kind of limited. Like
I would love to look.
You look like a Final Fantasy character, no matter what.
I would love to look like the big ass Gunzerker looking guy.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Like he looks cool. But yeah, it was a cool game. You also get a little robot companion, which is also pretty much your prison keeper in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But they help you in battle, and they can revive you, and you can revive them. But
it had good gameplay mechanics, though.
Yeah, I mean, story-wise,
it is interesting. Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's an amazing story. It's just different.
Yeah, I don't think it's providing anything new, but the combination that it provides of like common like story types is interesting, especially in a game format and that game format. Like, it does a good job of kind of blending stuff together to give you something new. Yeah, my other Vita suggestion is Soul Sacrifice. I just have the original Soul Sacrifice. There is Soul Sacrifice Delta, which is like the expanded version of this game. It's...
I'm gonna use your bathroom real quick.
Oh, you're good. I can talk about Soul Sacrifice.
There you go. Here, you can take, see ya, Virgil. That's the cat.
Yeah.
He's been sleeping on me this whole time.
Oh, she's very friendly. Soul Sacrifice, you play as like the last of your kind. You're like a magician or like a warlock who is captured. There's like an evil warlock in the world who is supremely powerful, and he is capturing all of the remaining like magic users in the world, you included. And you start the game in like a wooden cage or like a cell, and you watch like another warlock slash mage like be murdered by like the supreme warlock. Then in that guy's cell, there's this book that you gather that comes to you that's like sort of sentient. He talks to you. So every time you open up the game, like, this book is there in your cell. And he'll give you advice and kind of, like, guide you on your journey. But you're reading through this book or this journal and diary to play, like, past memories of an unnamed magician who somehow attaches to the evil one floating around. And you... like level up and you gain new powers and abilities by replaying these memories. And you get to learn about this unnamed mage's life as you play through these memories. And you kind of assume his life, even though it's a diary. And they have like each level or each memory is like a single stage. It's definitely like strategic as you play. You have to definitely like meet the mission objectives. You do have to like evade or dodge like incoming attacks. You have to vary up your moves. You kind of have like loadouts as you go into these missions. So you have to like switch up, like long range and short range attacks. But the more you play through this diary and these memories, the stronger you become. So eventually, by the time you hopefully reach the end of the game, you play through the whole diary, and you can defeat like the evil mage that. Hey, calm down. Hey, stop barking. That you can hopefully defeat like the evil mage that's like conquered everybody in this world. But I think like the characterization of like the unnamed mage that you play is great. I think the book like has great personality. Like I said, the book talks to you, and is like presenting you this story and has like a really cool, interesting story to tell you. And yeah, I really all I have to say about Soul Sacrifice.
I'm back.
I'd probably recommend getting Soul Sacrifice Delta though. Supposedly it's just the expanded version of Soul Sacrifice. There's other missions to play, other memories.
Is there an expansion that it came with too?
Yeah, and that Delta has that included plus some other extras. It's just like Soul Sacrifice 2.0. It's not necessarily a sequel, but it has everything that's the original version of Soul Sacrifice has, plus with that expansion and kind of added benefits. So that's another kind of like Vita hidden gem with Freedom Wars. The other ones I have are a little bit older. So I've got, in my opinion, 2 PS1 kind of classics. So I've got Crusaders of Might and Magic. And I forgot about 3DO, by the way. I think it's funny that you bring that up.
3DO?
Yeah.
Yeah. That system was pretty garbage.
I feel like this was
one
like...
if you want to try it out, though.
Diablo before Diablo. On consoles.
Oh, yeah, before on consoles, yeah. Because I'm pretty sure this game came out after Diablo. Yeah, it came out
it's probably
after
like
Diablo
a contemporary.
2. I think it actually came out after Diablo 2.
It's kind of one of those like I don't know, like a D&D or Magic the Gathering kind of vibed games. Third person action game.
Dude, Skid or Die.
Did they?
Yeah. Great game.
I really like this one. Not a popular one that I heard about a lot when I was growing up. But one I always really enjoyed. I always dived back into it. I thought like the spells and stuff at the time and like the magic and the attacks and animations that went with it were pretty cool.
It's been, both these games we have here have been so long since I've played them.
I haven't played this one in quite a bit. It's just one that I've always like treasured, I guess. Like it's kind of one of those like nostalgic trips for me. It was like trying to be Castlevania, but 3D. The one that I could probably say a lot more about is As Your Dreams on the PlayStation. I remember I borrowed this from a friend who lived in my neighborhood when I was a kid, and I played through it, and it was like notoriously hard. And my friend was like a little bit younger than me by like a couple years, and he couldn't beat it. And so it was kind of like, I bet you can't beat this kind of a thing. This is a hard game. So he let me borrow it, and I ended up beating it. And I always really loved it. Like, it was one of those games where you can kind of build that city, like, out around you. And, like, the main premise is like, you have a familiar, you go into this tower with randomly generated floors, and there's 100 floors, and your goal is to get to the top of the tower. And you play a kid whose father was like a famous monster hunter who would go into this tower that this town is built around regularly to provide for his family. And your father disappeared when you were like an infant, never came out of the tower. So now that you're like a teenager, very like Japanese kind of style, you're old enough to be able to go into this tower. And you start going up like these floors, and it's kind of roguelike in that nature. Because each floor is randomly generated, and you can get other familiars as you go up these floors, and you can also find on certain floors like these special items that have been lost over the years in the tower to collect and take back to the town, and then you can upgrade the town. So like as you get money and these items, you can like upgrade the family homestead and provide more spots to store your familiars or provide for your mother. Or you can help the community by building a pool for everybody or building a library. But you need like certain items that have been, like I said, long lost in the tower. And then eventually you find out what happened to your father, and you go all the way to the top of the tower, and you're the first to do it, so you find out what's at the top of the tower. But I always really liked the game structure for it. It was one that I was incredibly nostalgic about. A very difficult game, but a very interesting game.
It's a game that got some pretty mixed reviews, surprisingly enough.
As your dream?
Yeah, so they have
That doesn't surprise me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 reviewers here. All Game gave it 2 out of 5 stars. EGM gave it a 7.75 out of 10.
Electronic Games Monthly? Yeah. Fuck, I remember getting that magazine.
Yep. Game Informer gave it an 8 out of 10. Game Pro gave it a 4 out of 5. GameSpot, 7.3 out of 10. IGN, 7 out of 10. IGN also gave the Game Boy Color version, which was like a stripped-down version of that game.
There was a sequel to this, too.
Yeah, they mentioned that up here earlier.
I haven't played that.
And then Next Generation gave it a 2 out of 5 stars, and OPM US gave it a 3 out of 5.
That's so weird. So there's some like really top marks there, and then really bottom marks, like in the same breath.
Yeah, and there's a couple that are in the middle, like 7 out of 10. Like that's.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like a 7 or 8 is like higher up, but then I mean you're getting like a 2 out of 5. That's a 4 out of 10. Like damn, like that's low. That's crazy. I didn't know that. I don't think I've ever looked into reviews about it. I just remember being very nostalgic about it, but I didn't own the game, and so I always kind of looked out for it.
Yeah, there's a sequel for the DS. Well, they call it a semi-sequel. Tal's Adventure, Curse of the Demon Seal.
Yeah. That I recall. Like the name at least.
Yeah,
I didn't play that one, though.
I didn't have a DS. I had a 3DS when that came out, but I never had a DS. Actually, no, it's not true. I did have a DS. I only had one game for it, and that was Mario Kart.
No, I didn't have a DS. I do have a 3DS, though. And then the last game that I want to mention is Crystalis on the NES.
That's another game that you probably know more about than I would. I played it back in the day, but...
Yeah, that's one where I remember when we were growing up, like, I vaguely remembered it. Like, I remembered, like, high points of it, or, like, aesthetics of it. I could not remember the name of it. And then it was your brother brought over all those tubs of games.
Yeah.
And then it was, like...
It was just laying in there.
Yeah, and it was like, hey, we can go through these and, play any of these tonight, or, look at them or whatever. And it was like, that's it. Like, as soon as I saw the cover of it, I was like, oh, this is the one I've been talking about. And that's the copy of Crystalis I still have, by the way. That one is very, like, original Zelda-esque. Like Zelda 1 and 2, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
had some weird RPG elements to it, too, didn't it?
It was definitely an RPG, for sure. You could go to, like, these little towns and, like, upgrade or buy, new weapons and, I believe, a shield and stuff like that. It was top-down, isometric, like, RPG, very fantasy, like, oriented.
I got some really good reviews.
There was... And I know that the studio that made Crystalis is now defunct, and they have never been bought up or, like, reformed.
Well, it's actually SNK.
Aren't they done though?
I'm not sure. Let me look.
Is it SNK defunct? I thought they were. I could be wrong though.
The current owner of the brand is Neo Geo.
That's still
Yeah.
It's still a throwback. Damn.
My brother actually has a couple of arcades, Neo Geo arcades. Their revenue is 3 billion yen.
Okay, I don't know what that translates to U.S. dollars. But.
Net income in 2015 is 115 million yen.
Okay.
I mean,
it sounds impressive, but I don't know what the current exchange rate is. So
I just think of Venture Brothers, the very first episode of that.
Because is it close to like a power of 10? So is it like if you have like 3 million yen, it's something like $300,000 or something like that? It's like that. Which is not much for a company, really.
I just think of Venture Brothers in the very first episode of that, where he's in Mexico doing a lecture. And he gets a check. He's like, "Oh, how very generous of you!" It's like, "Oh, these are pesos. All these zeros mean nothing."
Exactly. I don't know if this is true or not for myself, but I think it was one of the first RPGs I ever played. Well before Final Fantasy. Probably well before Zelda.
Not before Final Fantasy's release, just before you played them.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case anyone's going to rage in the comments. Like, oh, Final Fantasy came out on the NES. Yeah, go for yourself.
Just one of those things for me personally of this genre. It's the earliest RPG that I remember playing. Because the first Final Fantasy I ever played was Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, apparently they registered for bankruptcy in 2003.
That's not too long ago. 16 years.
Its poor financial status led to an acquisition of Azure.
Interesting.
Oh no, excuse me. That's my dyslexia. A ruse.
Man.
A company known for its pachinko machines. God, pachinko.
Oh, pachinko, yeah.
God,
it's Konami now.
My parents used to have like a shit ton of those machines. For whatever reason. You know how it is, junk collectors.
Yeah, I don't know. It was one of those games that, like I said, like struck my love for RPGs. I hadn't at the time just played anything like it, and so finding Crystallis in that like Rubbermaid bin when we were kids was awesome. Like it was such a throwback for me, and one that I play pretty consistently, at least once a year. I really like that one a lot. But I think nowadays a lot of NES games go on the radar.
Yeah.
People don't really. It's not a zeitgeist or in the public conscience, except for the really big ones that are just constantly ported over to the newest Nintendo console. So it's I think it's good to go back and play stuff like that.
Enough for those for me right now.
Oh, that's fine. It's I don't know, just one of those ones that just always struck a chord with me. It was well before I played Final Fantasy. But when I did play Final Fantasy during the PS1 era, it drove me to play stuff like Alundra and other kind of fantasy games or RPGs.
Alundra was another one we were looking for.
Yeah, Alundra's good. I have one of them.
Do you?
Yeah. I think I have a digital copy of it, actually. I don't have the physical.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. Look.
We gotta look.
No, I don't. These are out besides.
Confirmation.
I think I have Alundra and Alundra 2 on my Vita.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have them on the PlayStation Classic collection or store.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have anything else to add?
Other than I'm gonna be playing my Vita when I get home.
Yeah, we should totally play Freedom Wars.
Dude, Freedom Wars definitely.
I didn't know you really liked that one, to be honest.
I love that game. That game, it's.
It was one that stuck in my memory, even though I haven't beaten it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one I was I really like this, and I've gone back to it a few times and played a little bit, or started over.
I actually have both a digital and physical copy of that game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and part of that was because with digital copies, I'm always afraid that those licenses will get revoked.
Yeah.
So I always get a physical copy of games, and it's not an expensive game.
No.
The digital copy I think was $20, which was.
I think when it released new, it was $30 or something. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, full priced even for a Vita game at the time. So.
Yeah, I would say Vita games were never $60, were they? They're always.
Yeah, I think it was like
50.
40.
Was it 40? Because one of the highest was like 50.
Could be right in there, but yeah, not $60 regardless.
And got a lot of weird games for it. And then I've also got a lot of games that I already had for other systems. Like
same here.
I mean, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. How many systems do I freaking have those games on now? Especially with the 7 and 9 remakes.
Yeah, since they don't have 8.
Everything.
So
yeah.
I actually had a guy get pissed off. So he said something about 8 not being like either remade or remastered or ported or whatever. We talked about last time. Mm-hmm. And I like commenting back. I was like, well, they lost the source code for it. Like, that's why it hasn't been. And he was like, I fucking know. And I was like, okay, bro. Like,
ooh. Well, then,
I was
fucking
like,
cool your tits, man.
Yeah, I was like, the way you phrased, like, your post, I had no idea that you knew I was actually just trying to be helpful. Like, I wasn't trying to be rude. Like,
I mean, now I'll just call you an idiot because you're getting angry for...
Yeah, I was like, the dude just like, unnecessarily flipped out about it. I was like, I was just telling you because I didn't know about it until a few months ago. Because I always wondered myself. Like, we get so many ports and remasters of 7 and 9 that why not 8? Like,
I will say this. If they lost the source code for 7, because of how many people love 7, they would have fucking...
Oh, they would have figured out a way. There's something, yeah.
That's like we'd still, even if we spent millions of dollars remaking this game,
reverse engineering an original copy of it or whatever.
It would just be printing money still.
Oh yeah.
And I hate that they know that.
Oh, they totally.
They know it, and I hate that. That being said, I'm still gonna fucking buy it when it gets remade, even if it is in episodes, because I'm a sucker.
Oh, I'm gonna do too, and I've said that. Like, it's one of those games where it's like, yeah, I know I'm totally feeding into the commercial machination that is capitalism, but I'm gonna do it.
It is not my favorite Final Fantasy, though.
What is your favorite Final Fantasy?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I've been playing a lot of the ones that were released in just Japan, which was 5 and 3, and
yeah, and I've gone back and played those. Yeah.
If I had to choose, I really like 2. I do really like 2, but I don't think it's my favorite. It's got a lot of things working against it. I guess I would say 9. I really love 9. And a lot of that is because it was when it came out, it was a callback to the classic games, both gameplay-wise and story-wise. Whereas
I like that it went fantasy, like hard fantasy.
With 7 and 8, they strayed away from the fantasy and went more along the sides of sci-fi or sci-fi fantasy. Yeah. And I did really enjoy 7 and 8, despite some of 8's glaring shortcomings, which
we talked about earlier.
Yeah, which 7 had its own shortcomings as well, but they were less numerous.
Yeah, I get that.
But I still really loved 8. One thing I love about 8 is Squall's development. Squall is not a character I particularly care for, but he has some of the best character development in any Final Fantasy. He went from being this pretty much emo, this classic emo character to...
Very apathetic, too.
Yeah, very apathetic. Classic emo, apathetic character. Whatever is a meme because of him.
Yeah, exactly.
To a hardened leader. He was kind of forced into position. He realized he had a choice. He could be like, I could just reject this and just move on and let everything go to shit, or I could,
I could step up.
Yeah, I could step up, and these people are relying on me.
Yeah, I could be the man that everybody knows I can be, kind of at the aspect.
But there were a lot of things that game just fell short on. The story was...
Because I feel like Zidane in 9 was really flat. I liked him as a character, but I don't think he really grew very much.
No, he didn't grow at all.
Yeah. But it was like comic relief. It was like humor a lot of the times. Like he kind of took everything lightly.
Yeah, but he was a main character, and that was kind of a problem.
But he wasn't Vaughn or Penello.
Fucking Vaughn.
That game's great, but those are the worst Final Fantasy protagonists ever.
I actually really liked Final Fantasy 12, but Vaughn, oh my god.
12 I really like, actually, as a game, yeah.
Vaughn is the worst main character because he's
Valtier
not
and
even...
Franz should have been, or Fran should have been the main character.
Even Ash. Ash could have been the main character.
Ash could have too, yeah. That's a good argument.
We
talked about that before too.
Yeah. But Vaughn...
Gameplay's great though, world's great, I like the political nature of the storyline. Beautiful game. It kind of has that
Fucking
watercolor aesthetic to it, which I think
Mhm.
holds up a little bit better nowadays than a lot of PS2 and PS1 generation games.
I started the
remasters?
remaster, by the way.
Remaster's great. Zodiac Age.
I will say this: I had a hard time. So it took me forever to get through the first part of the remaster
Yeah.
because I hated Long.
It's difficult, especially we play RPGs the same way where we'll grind,
Mm-hmm.
especially early on, and you want to do everything that you possibly can and like get a good start on everything. And it's really fucking hard in that game because you're
Yeah.
on.
And when you have all the licenses in that game, which I love and hate this mechanic.
The
at
license
same
board,
time.
yeah, and same with the gamut system overall. Like I love
Well-
and hate. Like I get both
Yeah.
and why, and I like figuring it out and mastering it and getting to it. But once you do, it's kind of like that's when I start to hate it.
Well, like you can program the game to play itself,
Yeah.
and all you have to do is move from point to point. And I get the idea of the system, and like I said, I both love and hate it at the same time. I love the fact that you can do that. Like it's not so complicated that it's not so complicated and not so simple that it's the game itself is just freaking easy as all hell.
Yeah, it's not
But it's
like East bumper mechanics, and it's not a traditional Final Fantasy.
East bumper. Yeah, God, East 1 and 2. East 1 and 2 were garbage. 3, I didn't care for 3 all that much, but it was very much a playable game.
Yeah.
But all the remake of 3 and all the games after 3 were awesome, I thought. I love East.
Yeah, I just got Ys 8 for the Switch so I can play through it because I haven't done it yet.
And that game I have mixed feelings about. The story seems a little forced in that game. But
And they just announced Ys 9
Which
for
I'm gonna
Japan.
buy it.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that.
I love the East series. I really do.
Well, we've got a good fan on Twitter. Shadow Morrison is what he goes by, but huge Ys fan, and he's down with that. So I'm gonna
There we
give
go.
him a shout out.
Yeah, have him join in one of these reviews.
He wants to, yeah.
Yeah.
He lives close by, and he definitely, even if we like Skype him in or something like along those
Yeah.
lines, he does want to partake in one of our podcasts that's like Ys-centric, which I'm sure once we get down the line, we'll sort of ish plan one out, and then we'll have him on.
I actually just finished Ys Origins.
How is that? I've wondered about like the
It's-
remasters and remakes of those.
It was interesting. Well, Ys Origins is not a remaster remake or anything. That's actually a separate game altogether. But it's the
Oh,
only
okay.
game that doesn't have Adol as the main character.
No, that's weird.
It actually takes place several hundred years before the events of any of the other Ys games.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was thinking it
Yeah.
was a collection and remake without the bumper mechanics in 1 and 2.
No, it's actually very different. You play as different characters, and it's interesting. It's an interesting game.
Yeah, no, I'm down.
It's weird playing as a character other than Adol though.
That would be weird.
But
yeah.
then I also thought it was weird with Memories of Salcedo when that came out, playing as other characters other than Adol. Like you could play the other characters.
Yeah, and for me, and for Shadow Morrison, Memories of Salcedo was my foray into Ys.
Mm.
So like that's what made me like that franchise and be like
And that-
invested in it.
And that was a very well written, a very well done game. My favorite, which was the remake of 3, is Oath of Felghana. I love
Which I played after you played it. I really like that one too.
and that one's really good. Ark of Naphatism is really good.
I haven't played that
probably
one.
butchered the naming of that game, but
Yeah,
whatever, hate me. I don't care.
Hate me, hate me, motherfuckers.
But
Yeah.
I love that style of game, which is very much it's kind of it was a top-down hack and slash. You could jump and everything else,
Okay.
and they were very fun games to play. It was very
I haven't played the
quick.
Ark one, but Oath of Felghana I liked. Yeah.
Yeah, that game's really good, and
Yeah.
Origins follows along that same style,
Okay. I didn't
except
know
for
that.
you have a character that's all magic, and you have a character that's hack and slash, and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay.
But
The mage and the warrior.
Yep.
The classic combo.
But it was they were very well done games. The story was very well done too. And I think it was the Ark of Naphatism. You have the mechanic. It might be Oath of Felghana. I don't remember, but you could have 3 swords that you end up getting. They have a ice one, a fire one, and a lightning one.
Yeah, okay.
And they work
so kind of like what we talked about, like Darksiders and like that Prince of Persia game where you have those elemental aspects to the weapons. I like that.
And they work on different enemies. And then on the bosses, some of them work better on certain bosses, including their charge attacks and things like that.
That makes sense.
And it was just very well done.
Yeah.
I think.
So Oath of Felghana would be your favorite Ys.
Yeah, Oath of Felghana would be my favorite.
Final Fantasy 9. Your favorite Final Fantasy?
Yeah, Final Fantasy 9 I really loved. I do agree that Zidane was pretty much, or Zidane, whoever wants to pronounce it whatever way.
Yeah, I've always said Zidane, but I don't know for sure. I mean, that's like a Titus situation.
I've played Dissidia. They're all different.
They are, yeah.
But my favorite...
you pronounce it the same way for years and then find out, like, oh, nope, this is how it's supposedly said.
Well, my favorite Final Fantasy characters are Laguna from Final Fantasy VIII. I love freaking Laguna.
Laguna's great.
And then Zack from Crisis Core.
Zack from Crisis Core is great, too, yeah.
I liked him a lot better than Cloud. Cloud was very boring to me.
Yeah, I mean... For me, I know it's definitely like nostalgic driven, but Final Fantasy VII was the first one I played.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought when I first started playing that game that the whole game would be just you taking down the Mako reactors or Mecha reactors. Like that's all it would be for the entire game.
At least your first Final Fantasy game was a good Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah, it was a really good one.
My first one was Mystic Quest.
Oh god, which I played through too.
Which that game...
That'd be harsh.
That's a Final Fantasy game made for like 3-year-olds, pretty much. God.
Yeah, which was the intention behind it.
Well, the intention behind it was Americans.
Western audiences are dumb. Yeah.
Well, what sucks is that's the first Final Fantasy game that Europeans got.
Yeah, that's awful. That
sucks.
Awful. Yeah.
And then they had what game was it? It wasn't called Mystic Quest in Europe. The game that was called Mystic Quest in Europe was a Game Boy game, which was called Final Fantasy Legends here, which was in the U.S.
Was Mystic Quest in Europe?
It was called Mystic Quest in Europe. It was called Final Fantasy Legends here, which is actually part of the Secret of Mana series.
Oh yeah, Squaresoft was so fucking convoluted back in the day with their. I mean, a lot of like game studios and publishers did that. Mm-hmm. The communication and the release of titles between Japan and Western studios was bad at best. It just didn't really make sense. Like there was not a lot of like cross communication. Localization was bad. Like it's really difficult to sift through. I mean, really only huge fans of those kind of series are going to know the differences in either how they released or what they were called and what they are nowadays. Mm-hmm. And it's just a smorgasbord. It's a clusterfuck. That's really what it comes down to.
However, the very first real Final Fantasy game I played, Mystic Quest, is not a real Final Fantasy game.
It's not.
That's garbage.
That's out of sight.
I'll still play it again sometime. Yeah. But anyways, Final Fantasy 3, which was actually Final Fantasy 6, was the very first real Final Fantasy game I played. And it's not my favorite. I really liked it, and a lot of it might be nostalgic factor, but I didn't care for Terra, the main character, all that much.
I haven't either, and I struggled to get through that game because of that.
But Kefka is my favorite Final Fantasy villain. Which
I've heard, there's a huge debate, like, in the Final Fantasy community and fandom that is your favorite 6 or is it 7? Like, that's the big one. And for me, because I started with 7 and I've never been able to finish 6 because of Terra, although I do like Kefka, from what I've seen, from what I've played, I haven't really been able to get through that one. And it's not because of the older style. Like, obviously, there's a big leap between 6 and 7. However, my favorite Final Fantasy game is Final Fantasy 4.
And I was going to bring that game up as well, because that was the
even though 7 I have a huge nostalgia trip for. 4 is my favorite.
Yeah. 4 is good. It was another one of those games though. Even 3, which was 6. That they dumbed it down for American audiences.
Yeah, like and I recognize that too.
I actually recommend playing the 3D remake for 4. I
played the Wii version of 4 and its sequel. This is the first time I played it actually.
Okay.
Which is a weird one because they got the same game director back to do the sequel to 4, and it's great. You play as Cecil's son, Cecil Door. and I thought that was really cool.
And
4 is my
Golden
favorite
as
is just
well.
because of the morality aspect of it.
Right.
In my opinion, like playing all
Well,
the older Final Fantasies prior to 4, 1, 2, and 3, and then the ones afterwards, it was the first time where they like questioned and talked about like ethics
Yeah.
and like good and evil and what it is to be.
And Spoony
Both.
Bards. Don't forget about Spoony Bards.
Yeah, true.
It was...
I just like that aspect of it. I thought it was like avant-garde for its time, even though I played it a lot later. I thought it was interesting to talk about what it is to be good or evil, or good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts out as a Dark Knight, then becomes a Paladin, and it's like that kind of like evolution of that character. Like I thought was really interesting, so I like that.
My problem with that game is I loved 4, and 4 is probably my favorite of the Nintendo and Super Nintendo era. But it's...
And I think it's easier to pick favorites to divide it up into that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so we could probably talk in ad nauseam about it, but I think it would be a good idea to say, like, what's your, like, older favorite one? What's your PS1 favorite one? What's your, like, current-ish gen favorite one?
But with 4 was one that really tried to pull on the heartstrings with the characters in the game.
It did.
But there were so many fake outs with deaths and mind control.
It was, yeah.
It's like, oh, Cain is evil. No, he's not. He's mind controlled by Golbez. Was it Sid? Sid that blew himself up for what seemed like no fucking reason?
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's not dead anyways.
Like the martyr kind of aspect. Yeah.
And then the monk died but didn't really die.
Yes.
And like that shit just kept happening over and over again. Then you get to Golbez, who at this point you think is the main villain of the game. It's the very end of the game after you're on the goddamn moon and everything else.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it though too.
But Golbez is like, no, I'm Cecil's brother, and he's been mind controlled by some other greater evil that you just learned about, and now you have to fight him.
Yep.
And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Who am I fighting? I don't know who the hell you are.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I agree with that.
And I get the idea of subverting your expectations, but they could have done it in a way that they did in Final Fantasy VI. She didn't realize Kefka was the main villain.
Yeah, that's true.
But you knew who Kefka was.
Yeah, the entire time. Yeah, from the get-go. Yeah.
Yeah, you knew who he was, and then you learned he was actually the one pulling the strings. And that's a good...
The puppet master.
Exactly. So now you have a connection from the character from the beginning, and now you have a greater reason to hate him towards the end. As opposed to with Golbez, you hated Golbez throughout the game, and then there's this unknown guy that, well, I guess I hate him too. I mean,
so what's your favorite older Final Fantasy game then? Is it 4 or no?
4 would be my favorite. I did really like the story in 4, despite my complaints in it.
So then 9 for PS1 generation. What would be your favorite, like PS2 onward?
For PS2, I would have to, because there's only 2 for PS2 in there. Well, I guess.
Well, I was saying like onward, so like include PS2, PS3, and then all the way up to 15.
Well, 15 and 13 and the 13 series, we're gonna push those aside. I did like 13 too. Don't get me wrong, and Lightning Returns was just hilarious to me because
Lightning Returns was hilarious, and of that trilogy, 13-2 is definitely the best, by far.
But Lightning Returns, I had the most fun playing because it was fun to play. The story was
fucking Messiah. It's great.
You're Jesus.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You're just saving souls. That's all you're doing. But before the
they redeemed hope.
Yes.
Which I think
they redeemed hope in 13.
They did in 2. That's true. Yeah.
And
it was progressed in the third one, but yeah.
In Lightning Returns, I felt like they regressed with him.
A little bit, yeah. 13-2, he kind of came into his own where he was like actually a badass instead of a whiny little bitch.
But if we're gonna go with PS2 era and on, after the PS2 era, we're pushing all of those games aside because
that's fine.
15 wasn't necessarily bad, but it's unfinished. So in my opinion, it's just not a game right now.
We're gonna shelve this for like the next one, and I'll write it down. But why do you think Final Fantasy 15 is unfinished? You're not the only one that I've heard that from. Everybody says that, but I feel like just because there was a promise made in DLC doesn't mean it's unfinished.
Well, even without the DLC, the ending of the game just left a lot open. There was, I didn't feel
I feel like it had a good conclusion, but
and I
that's
just
my
didn't,
opinion,
I just
yeah.
didn't feel it did. I don't really care about DLC all that much.
Oh, okay. That's just good to hear.
Yeah, but it just felt unfinished, and then when the DLC started getting released, more and more started getting added on to the story. But honestly, the ending's not really what made it feel unfinished to me. It was the start of the game.
Okay.
You miss a lot if you didn't watch the Kingsglaive movie.
True. Yeah, like I said, we can shelve this for the next podcast. I was just curious. We'll talk to this like off mic, but I think we could probably we
will romp.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what happened here. We could probably wrap it up into I don't know, like a podcast about games with like unsatisfied or unsatisfactory endings.
Okay.
Like, I think other games would fit into that as well. Like, I definitely have some that come to mind.
I would have to really think about that for a second, but go ahead.
We'll have, like, relatively a month to think about it.
Oh, okay,
so,
fair enough.
Yeah, I think it would be good. And we can talk to it after we finish up this. But, okay, so pushing PS3 and the PS4 Final Fantasies aside, that leaves PS2. So what's your favorite?
Which would be 10 and 12. 10-2 is garbage.
10-2 is garbage. I love the fucking dress sphere system, and I'm gonna fucking say
no,
that.
no,
like,
that's
I
a
love
good
that.
system.
Like,
You
but
know,
yeah, by comparison with those three, yeah, garbage.
Let's see, Team 10 and 12, which have protagonists in both that kind of annoy me.
Yeah.
Because even Zidane, not Zidane, Titus, or Titus, or whatever you want to call him.
I
But
hate that it's
I
called Titus. I always said Titus.
I always said Titus too. But it was a very well written, very well done game. Even Final Fantasy 12 was. I guess I would have to. I don't know, because I really liked the political stuff in 12.
Me too.
But Final Fantasy 10, I think, was more true to what the games were beforehand.
Yeah.
And I did like the gameplay in 10 considerably better than 12. As fun as
I agree with that.
As fun as programming the game's play itself can be, I would say 10. I think I'll choose 10. I really love the characters in 10. I like how they related Titus to Wakka's dead brother.
Yeah, that was cool.
So that it pretty much gave a connection from the main character to the party right away.
Yes.
It may have seemed weak at first.
It definitely built into it, though.
Yeah, it built into it. Like because it didn't just add to Wakka's and Titus's relationship, but it added to Lulu's and Wakka's relationship, and then,
by extension.
Yeah, and then Yuna's relationship with the whole party as well.
Well, and then Yuna's connection to her father,
right,
Braska, and then Titus's father Jet obviously had a relationship with Braska, which then that trickles down to Yuna and Titus's love interest and relationship, which I honestly think in Final Fantasy overall, best love story. I think a love story is always good.
Yeah,
I'll go with that. A story, like overall, I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's good if you can pull it off and do it well. In all the Final Fantasies, I think that's the best one, because I think they tried to do that with like Lightning and Snow. And it was like, not really.
Not quite.
It just didn't quite like hit home.
Well, Snow is already
relationship was good. 7, you could kind of go back and forth with that one.
Well, 7 I really liked because it had a broken relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean Cloud and Aerith, but Aerith with Zack as well.
That's what I mean. And then
like
on top of it, Cloud had a fucking identity crisis and thought he was Zack for most of that game.
Right. And then he realized he wasn't. He was like, ah, shit.
It is kind of psychotic, though, that, like, Aerith, even before she died, like, kind of went along with that. Like, whether she knew or not, like, that's kind of fucked up.
Like, I kind of get why Tifa was going along with it. She didn't want Cloud to go crazy like Sephiroth did.
Yeah.
And I get that. I understand.
Oh,
that.
I get that, too. I think Tifa and Cloud, though, are a better match.
I don't know. I don't think Tifa's a good match for anyone. She's kind of like...
I don't think Cloud's, like, a great, like...
I'm not saying Cloud would be a good match.
Soldier.
No, he's not. He's
He had to
mentally
assume
unstable.
somebody else's identity.
He's mentally unstable. He is the only protagonist I could think of off the top of my head right now that regressed throughout the story.
Oh, and then the whole like fractured mindset thing.
Yeah.
That whole sequence in 7.
But that was very interesting. It was one of the things that added to the emotion of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely.
It may have not been my favorite, but it's definitely freaking up there.
Yeah, I think for me, yeah, I agree with your list. Final Fantasy 9 is my favorite of the PS1 generation. Final Fantasy 4 prior, and then Final Fantasy 10 afterwards.
Yeah,
10 and 12, between those two, is actually the hardest decision to make.
And honestly,
in my
it
opinion.
comes down to gameplay with those two, for me.
And I agree with that, and I also agree that it carried the torch. Like we talked about comics earlier, and Kyle Rayner was always the torchbearer for the Green Lanterns. It was the same kind of thing. Final Fantasy X carried that golden era of Final Fantasy, that torch from 7, 8, and 9 to the PS2, and it was really the only one to do so.
Right.
Like 12 is a great game in its own right, and definitely worth playing. And I love playing the remaster, but it's starting to break away from what Final Fantasy had been before.
Which is
not necessarily not bad by any means. But I don't think it could have made the transition. Like if 10 and 12 had swapped for whatever reason, I don't think that the marketplace at the time or fans at the time would be okay going with Final Fantasy 9 to 12.
Right.
It's just too much of a leap. And I think a lot of people would have been pissed off. So 12 has its rightful place as the 12th entry. 10 though was just that great bridge. Like it introduced like full-on voice acting into a Final Fantasy series, which like gave then in retrospect like life and character to Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. And then you get Crisis Core, which adds to that as well with 7.
And just in case anyone forgot, or just in case anyone's going to mention it, we did not forget Final Fantasy 11.
Yeah.
Although I think
we're kind of like omitting like MMOs, like you and I played 11 together, and I know how much you love 14.
Yeah, 14 I really love, and I still love that game. I'm excited for Shadowbringers, which comes out just next month. Although I pre-ordered it, so I get a couple weeks early.
Yeah. I would say like
Gunbreaker
specifically favorite Final Fantasies that are like single player narrative driven ones.
Well, 11 I still think is important for that, although it might not be single player, but it is very narrative driven.
Yeah.
And it does have a really good story and has really expansive characters. The drawback to that game, aside from it being an MMO, was, at least at the time that I played it, you could not go through that game on your own.
Yeah.
You could kind of make it happen as long as you got the correct jobs to do so. Like, Ninja was required for that. Ninja gave you a dual-wielding ability.
Yeah.
And I was a red maid ninja for that.
Yeah, I remember trying to, like, single play, like, Final Fantasy 11.
Yeah, and you got into that game too late, too.
I did. I was, like, a lot later when I finally started playing it, and you helped me along for a bit, and then I did get attached to a group who tried to help me along as well, but my lifestyle at the time was, like, not geared towards playing an MMO.
God,
I just couldn't.
What I don't understand is, like, I had one character that I got to max level in that game, and it took me forever to do. Like, from high school to college to do.
Yeah.
And I had these friends that would get their characters from 1 to level 80, like, in a few days.
Yeah.
And then I don't understand. I didn't understand it. Maybe it was just because I didn't understand the game as much as I should have, but
yeah.
It was such a hassle to level in that game because most of the time.
And that's how I felt. Yeah. I was just kind of like stuck in that like intro area for the longest time
you were
myself.
Stuck in the dunes, weren't you?
Yeah, and I was just like,
Valkyrie dunes. God.
Leveling up, but it took forever to reach those levels and like to progress on your own, and it was just like I'm not making any headway. And then finally, when I broke out into like new areas and stuff, it was the same kind of thing. I was like, this is gonna take me 20 hours to go to the next area. And I just haven't gotten very far.
I think it's free to play now.
That makes sense.
I think so. I might have to go back and try that because I'm kind of curious of where the game's at.
I didn't realize Final Fantasy 11 was still going.
Yeah, it's still around, but I think it's free to play now.
That's kind of cool.
But Final Fantasy 14, that game's to me far superior. A Realm Reborn Final Fantasy 14, I should say, because original Final Fantasy 14.
That only lasted like a year, though. I mean,
well, yeah, and that was a game like Square Enix realized this is garbage. So here's what we're gonna do: we're gonna destroy that world and rebuild it.
Which is great, and I'm glad that like you told me later that they like tied that into the narrative. Like that's really cool.
Yeah, they did really good with that whole idea, and that's like unprecedented.
Unprecedented?
There we go. That word. That word.
Yeah, it really was. When you told me that, I was honestly like flabbergasted. I was like, that's really cool and very intelligent way to handle that. Like, and they didn't have to do that. They could have just rebooted it like every other like studio or like publisher does, and like moved on. We're gonna ignore this. This didn't fucking happen. We fucked up.
But the problem was, the problem was so many people had already paid for the game.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, we can't just ostracize these people.
Yeah, they handled it very intelligently, and they did well by their consumers. And then on top of it, it added to the story of the game, the world, and like that's awesome. Like a very clever solution that satisfies like consumerism and also fandom. And it's like, that's awesome. That's really fucking cool. And
what else was cool about that is you did not need to play the original Final Fantasy 14 to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
The game does very well with explaining it. It's just kind of like a game that had an event that happened beforehand.
Yeah. Like the prelude.
Yeah. And
it's the Kingsglaive of 14.
Right. And it was, well, I wouldn't even say it was the Kingsglaive of 14, because with 15, with Kingsglaive,
you needed that.
You missed so much in the story of the game.
Which is true.
Which Kingsglaive I thought was very well done. I thought
it was great.
Yeah, I thought it was better than the game Final Fantasy 15.
I really liked 15, actually.
And
that one I enjoyed.
And that's fair. I still played all the way through it. Clearly, I didn't hate the game.
The only part of 15 that I really didn't like I really don't have any gripes about the gameplay. Story overall, I don't really have any gripes. I mean, we're watching like a road trip of friends, and that kind of story boiled down, I think, is a good starting point.
I kind of wish
for something bigger, I suppose. But I mean, drawing it back to its roots, and I don't know, watching that unfold I thought was really cool, and those character progressions and their interactions and their friendship sometimes get really tense and then come back to one another because they've been friends. I thought was awesome. The part that really irked me about it though is that fucking 10-year gap or whatever it is, and Noctis just disappears.
Yes.
And I was honestly very confused about what had happened in the story. Final Fantasy games can get confusing. They will oftentimes introduce a lot of jargon or world history that you just kind of have to pick up on. 15, up to that point, I felt did a good job explaining kind of what was going on, about the kings and their powers and how that spread to the Kingsglaive and their closest friends and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I can buy that. I understand his betrothal even, and the Oracle's powers and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I get that. I'm down. But then when he pretty much gives himself to the other kings and almost the villain at the same time, and then he's just gone for 10 years. And it's why? Why was he only gone for 10 years? Why wasn't he just gone, period?
Right.
Or why didn't he just come back immediately with this newfound power to finish the game? I don't really understand why it was kind of in the middle, and I still really don't understand why it was that way.
I feel like Arden could have been so much more in that game.
I feel like Arden needed to be more fleshed out, and I am excited to play the Arden DLC, which is out and was finished and put out.
I'm glad they finished that. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, they actually rounded out the game with that DLC. But they were kind of forced to.
Yeah.
Because the director of the game just left.
Yeah, and they canceled that whole season of DLC except for that DLC.
As much as I would love to just blame Square Enix for unfinishing a game, which I still will, because the main story in the game should have been finished with the game itself, not with DLC.
I feel like some of the DLCs weren't and they probably were planned and they do add to the story, but I feel like some of them make sense as DLC. The ones that kind of like don't make sense is like the Gladio one, which is the first one in the first season of DLC. Like, there's obviously a blatant disruption in the narrative where like Gladio disappears for like a segment of time, and then he comes back with a scar, and then he doesn't talk about it.
And that's something I didn't understand because apparently, like when he came back, it was almost implied that Gladio and Noctis were in a rough spot for some reason.
But they don't really ever explain it. They don't explain his scar. He doesn't talk about what happened because that was obviously planned for a DLC, which they released. Right. And that was a little iffy for me too, because I was like, oh, come on. Like, this story chapter, even if it was like playable in a DLC later, should have been explained in the main game. Like, why are they in a rough spot to begin with? Like, why did Gladio leave, or why is he pissed off when he comes back? And why does he have the fucking scar? Like, what happened to him?
Right.
Like, he could have easily said, even if it was just exposition, I would have been down with that, and then playing a DLC with him later to fill in that little gap. Like, okay, like I'll buy that. But they obviously omitted so much in the main narrative that it was like, that's planned DLC. Like, that should have just been in the story. And I agree with that. The other ones, like with Ignis and Promptu, felt less forced.
I would agree.
Like, they made a little bit more sense. Same kind of thing, though. I mean, like, you know, like in Ignis's like DLC, that's where he gets blinded, and then in Promptu, it's like you find out more about like his like heritage or past and where he came from. But those are alluded to like earlier in the game, and they talk about them fairly regularly in the narrative.
It is something that's kind of frustrated me with Square Enix. The games that I'm having the most fun with Square Enix is not their main AAA games that have been popping up on systems. Final Fantasy XIV is one game that I've had a lot of fun with, which I'd give them a pass for that. But then the other game that I enjoy a lot more than Final Fantasy 15 or 13 is Brave Exvius for the phone.
Oh, yeah.
The story in
their mobile games are actually really fucking good.
Yeah, like in general. Brave Exvius, the story is not the most well-written thing in the world, but it's engaging. Like I'm very interested in it. I continue. And going through the story, at least for me, I don't have to spend any money to go through the story. I know I'm in a couple of groups for the game, like on Discord and Facebook, and I see a bunch of people who are just like, oh, should I buy this pack or this pack or this pack? And I'm like, why?
You don't need to, don't.
I mean, you go through the first half of the game with just the characters that they give you.
Yeah.
And then you can...
that's what I played too.
Right? And then you get enough lapis, which is the main currency in the game, to summon enough characters to be able to go through the other half, even if you don't... Because now they have 2 to 7-star characters.
Yeah.
And before it was 2 to 6-star, and the 6-star characters, at least for me, seem to be good enough to go through the story. I have a few 7-star, but they're a pain in the ass to get.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, it just...
Yeah, and for me overall with like Square Enix, some of the other studios, they don't own all of them now, but that are, you know, creating like Hitman and Tomb Raider and stuff like that, I'm more interested in those games.
Yeah.
As big of a Final Fantasy as I am. They don't own Eidos anymore for Hitman. They had actually a good like amicable kind of break. But I feel like the episodic nature of the reboot of Hitman and the continuation of that story was actually like really intelligently done. Like,
and I have a question. Am I the only person that's frustrated with the fact that with Hitman 2 specifically, I have to specify the year in which it was made?
Yeah, the naming, like, kind of nomenclature of some games is fucking infuriating. So, like, I'm recently have been playing the very first God of War on the Vita. I've already platinumed it before.
I like that one.
I do too. Yeah. I'm like, I want to platinum it again.
PSP, sorry.
I want to platinum it again on the Vita. The Vita has trophy support. I platinum it on the PS3. But it's a game I go back to regularly. And so there was like a part where I was like, man, I don't know how to get to this. So I looked up at like a walkthrough, and all I came up with the fucking new God of War because it's titled the same fucking thing. And so it was like I specifically had to say like God of War 2005. walk through to look for this specific chest that I couldn't remember how to get to, that I could visibly see. I just couldn't, like, platforming wise, figure out how to get there.
At least with Devil May Cry, they essentially named it DMC.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm down with, and it's like called that even in its like special edition or definitive edition.
Speaking of hidden gems, which I know most people didn't care for this game, was it Ninja Gaiden Z?
Oh yeah.
I love that game.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Hilarious.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I loved like fighting against the Pope zombies and like taking their head off and using it as a freaking cannon.
Well, yeah, it was good.
God, that game was so underrated. I love that game.
Reminds me of what's it, God of War 3 with Helios, where you take his head and they use it as a flashlight.
Yep.
That's great.
Fucking A.
Yeah, it is kind of weird though, like the title of games. Like there's so many like reboots, and like the industry is finally like old enough that we have these very distinguished reboots that are doing well for themselves. Because it's like, okay, well if you say Doom, do you mean Doom 2016 or do you mean Doom? Like the original.
Put a subscript on it. Zelda can do it for every single one of their games. They got like a bazillion million games.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely like subtitles are the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, how many Zelda games are just called The Legend of Zelda?
Yeah, exactly.
One.
Yeah. Like the Darksiders news that was released ahead of E3. They have a prequel, and it's called Darksiders Genesis.
I just want to see it continue.
That's kind of how I felt, because I was like, where's 4? I want to play a Strife.
Right?
And in the prequel, you can play a Strife, but it's not the same.
Yeah, no, it's not the same. I guess as long as they finish the game with God of War 4 after the prequel, I will give them a pass. But if
I think THQ Nordic is doing well enough. Like I honestly thought after Darksiders 1 and 2, like it was never going to be finished. It wasn't going to happen. I mean, I know.
thought that after Darksiders 1,
like Nordic bought up like Volition and old THQ stuff before they became THQ Nordic. I honestly thought it was never going to be finished.
I kind of hope that there's some good multiplayer for the final Darksiders game where you can have
Genesis
play
is 2-player co-op.
Is it?
Yeah, you play as War and Strife.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, it's like they fill in with the lore a little bit from what I've seen, where I didn't realize this, but I thought this was kind of cool, and I kind of want a game like centered in this. But the Nephilim, which the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse are in Darksiders, there was a huge war between all of them. There was a whole bunch of them, and the last remaining 4 became the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. They were pretty much like charged with murdering themselves, and like if you want to be the 4 Horsemen, you kill the rest of them, and so they did. And then you get Strife, War, Death, and then Fury, and we've played as all of them except for Strife up to this point. And then the prequel, Darksiders Genesis, is right after that war. And so you play, and it's Diablo-esque. And you play as Strife and you play as War.
I would say they explain that in Darksiders 1.
They do, yeah.
And War was apparently the main one responsible for...
Which is kind of funny, because then he like causes the apocalypse in the first one. Like, not really, but
yeah,
he gets blamed for it.
Yeah, he gets blamed for it. And I think it started of 3. Doesn't Fury think that he did as well?
Yeah, Fury's kind of a bitch, and it's great. I love it. Like, Fury does, like, she hates humans. She wants to kill all of them. She doesn't give a fuck. Like, she's kind of apathetic about it.
Yeah.
And then in the opening cutscene of Darksiders 3, Fury goes and talks to the Charred Council. They charge her with a new quest. And War's chained up, like he was at the end of the first one. And he's like, heed my warning, we're fucking being set up.
You're right.
And she kind of blows him off because she's a hothead. Like, she's like, fuck it, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm stronger than all of you. I should be leading all of you, by the way. And then she leaves, and then, like, very early on in the story, she finds out, they're being set up. And she's like, what the hell? Like, she's, like, pissed off, and she remembers what War told her.
Right. I feel like War is the weakest of the 4.
That's why I didn't realize it when we were messaging about Darksiders, when I was asking you about it. I was like, oh, that's really weird, because it's like, I played the beginning of 2. Death very much comes across as, like, the epitome of death in that game. Fury is enraged all the time. She's a hothead, like she's very powerful, but she's like short-sighted. Like she's just enraged constantly, which fits her character and her name, her namesake, and so it works. But then I brought up War, and I was like, War really didn't act like a War or that horseman at all. Like I like the character, but it's just like he doesn't really behave that way. Like. He's very level-headed. He's very responsible. Like he really doesn't want to seem to cause war. I was like, that's so weird. Like,
Death, I thought was really cool. I actually liked Death's character better than War.
I liked both of them.
I liked how loyal Death was, though.
Especially to his brotherhood.
Yeah,
like,
Death was like, War is being set up. I know this. I know War. And he wouldn't fucking do this.
And after starting Darksiders 3, I get the feeling that Death just, like, disappears. Like, nobody knows where the fuck he is.
Well, he ends up resetting what eliminated the human race.
Okay.
So he revives the human race.
Okay. Which makes sense, like, settings for 3 then, because it's kind of like, coming back.
Right. And 2 kind of happens alongside 1.
Okay.
So War is doing all the stuff for the Charred Council while Death is trying to redeem War.
Okay. That makes sense. Because in 3 in the beginning, when Fury talks to the Charred Council, she asks, like, where Strife is. And they're like, Strife is on his own mission doing something else independent from you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, like, obviously a setup for eventually a Darksiders 4 where you play as Strife. And then, so that's kind of cool, because they then will run parallel on one another, like Death and War stories are parallel, and then Fury and Strife stories will be parallel.
You know what I think will end up happening? I think Strife will end up being the main villain.
Well, and that's interesting, because it's like, Strife's kind of like, from the new Darksiders Genesis trailer, is very, like, smart-mouthed.
Right.
Like... But Fury mentions that Strife has always been like the favorited leader of the Horsemen because he is the most intelligent of all of them and the most like tactile.
Right.
So it's like that would easily fit into like a villain stereotype or a setup for some reason. I'm sure in his mind there will be like a greater goal that'll be divine in some way. But
I wouldn't be surprised if everything in the events of 1 was set up by Strife.
Yeah.
And Strife ends up being a Strife's stepping stones to godhood, essentially.
Yeah, and Fury talks about that quite a bit. Like, I don't think she's quite at that echelon, but she says, like, the one thing she wants from the Charred Council, and the only reason she's, like, willing to do their bidding even, is she wants to be in charge of the Horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all she wants.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm the rightful leader. I'm the strongest of them. Like, I don't really care if I'm hot-headed. Like, I want to lead them. I am the best kind of leader. So I can totally picture that. Like, Strife pulling strings in the background this entire time, because he is the best of them. And then, no, I want everything. Like, I want to command the Charred Council or have them, like, eliminated and be them.
Right.
You know. I don't need to be in charge of the Horsemen, whether I'm the best of you or not. Like, I want to be in charge of everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being, like, War and Fury ends up fighting against Strife, or Death comes back and ends up fighting alongside.
The other
War.
like 3 horsemen versus Strife.
Or maybe ends up being Strife and Fury teaming up against War and Death.
That would be cool.
Because
Fury
clearly...
and Strife seem more aligned, and like narrative-wise, if their stories run parallel to one another, and War and Death run parallel, and they're loyal to one another, more level-headed, that would make sense.
Yeah.
2v2.
Yeah. And Death, like, I really...
And if Strife and Fury truly have, like, these otherworldly ambitions where Strife's like, Fury, you can lead them if they survive, or lead my new army, or whatever the fuck I want.
Right, you can be my general.
Yeah, and do anything that you want to do. But we have to kill our brothers. We have to kill Death and War. Like, they're gonna...
It's the Nephilim War all over again.
Exactly.
But with just
a microcosm, just the 4 of them. All they have to do is eliminate the Charred Council. But if that's Strife's, like, true goal, like, that's how it'll happen.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And I'd be okay with that.
I would too.
Then I would understand why we wouldn't have a game where we just play as Strife going through his own thing.
Which then also makes sense for like a prequel in the in-between time too, because like why truncate a like newly budding franchise again? Back to back, you release 3 or 4 and it's done with that kind of story arc. Well, in the in-between time, that's released like an offshoot. That's released a prequel to lead to 4, and like we get to learn a little bit about Strife and maybe his character, like motivations, and then probably get a Darksiders 4. So,
right.
Yeah. You get to, that cash cow again.
I wouldn't be surprised if, as far as their roles go, I wouldn't be surprised if Strife is the smartest, Fury the strongest, just in brute strength.
Yeah, she is.
War being the most versatile.
Yeah.
And then Death, I don't know what Death would be.
Death kind of fits like in that in between. He's obviously loyal to War, but that makes sense too, like symbolically, because War causes death.
Right.
So it's like it would make sense for them to be the most loyal to one another, because it's like there is no war without death, and there is no death without war.
And Fury and Strife are very much related.
Yeah, I mean it's anger and subversion.
Mm-hmm.
So they can both work in the shadows, but not at the same time. That would make sense. I do like Fury's character in Darksiders 3. It's very interesting. It's one of those kind of leads where you want not to like her. Like, she's not the typical, like, protagonist. But at the same time, she is kind of funny and does the right thing because she knows that it's going to help her. Like, she's not truly altruistic ever. But if she knows, like, saving humans will, like, provide her upgrades for her weapons or enhancements, like, she'll do it.
Right.
Like, kind of a thing.
As long as it furthers her own goals, she'll do it.
And she flat out says that. Like, she doesn't care about humans. She really doesn't care about her other brothers. Like, she doesn't give a fuck about them. As long as she's in charge, that's all she wants. And, like, the Charred Council in the beginning, like, tell her, well, it took the 4 of you last time to defeat the 7 deadly sins. Which is, like, the main plot of Darksiders 3. And she's like, I can do it by myself. Like, she doesn't give a fuck.
She's cocky.
Yeah, I don't need anybody else. I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I kind of like that, like, quality about her. Like, just doesn't give a fuck. Just doing her own thing.
I need to play that game. I've been, on Steam, I've been hovering over the purchase button for that game. And I've been like, I'm just going to wait.
It was finally on sale, so Ariel scooped it up for me. So.
I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to wait till it goes on sale. Because I really enjoyed 1 and 2, like, a lot. I played through those games quite a bit, getting the Abyssal Armor in 1 and all of the strongest weapons in 2.
Yeah, I did everything in 1. I got the platinum for that. 2, I need to go back to. I just didn't like the change in the gameplay mechanics. I don't think it's bad by any means. It's just, I liked how 1 was, and I expected it to be not necessarily more the same, but same style at least, and it just wasn't. So I was like, it kind of dissuaded me a little bit. 3 definitely harkens back to the first one, but I like it. They definitely change it enough that it makes it interesting.
Yeah, I'll need to play it.
That's worth it.
I really like the first 2, even though they were, different. I didn't think they were as different as you mentioned, but that honestly, that could be preference, I guess.
No, I did like playing back to back too in the remasters. It's like I beat it the first Darksiders when it came out. I didn't play the second one at all for whatever reason. I don't know why. And then with the remasters, I platinumed the first one and then I went right into the second one. So it was like it legitimately was back to back. So it was like I might have noticed the differences a little bit more than if it had been 3 years or 4 years in the in between time.
Yeah, you should. I definitely think you should play 2. I think you would.
Oh, I totally will. I have the remastered version of it, and I'm definitely gonna platinum all of them.
Right.
Yeah. I like the story. I like the lore enough that it has me.
I did love 1. I really did love 1 quite a bit.
1's great, and that's one of the few games where I've beaten twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I dug it.
I don't have it for 360 anymore. That's because I don't have a 360 anymore.
Yeah. Well, I put the remasters.
Yeah. I've got the remaster for 1 on lots of things, but on Steam, currently on Steam and a Switch. Is what I
nice.
on.
The War Mastered Edition.
Yep, the War Mastered.
And the definitive, which is very difficult to say.
I wonder what the Fury one would be.
I don't know. Yeah, with next gen. All I can think is Führer. Like I'm thinking like Nazism. I don't know why. The
Say
Führer edition.
Say your theories in the comments.
Yeah, what happened? The Founders edition.
The founder. The Flounder.
Yeah, I was like, how would you say that?
The Floundered edition. What?
What? Yeah, it's fine.
Futuristic.
Nah, that's good. That's good there, yeah.
Or we're getting closer.
Yeah, Darksiders 3, the Futuristic edition. Picture that.
Yeah, I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Almost like futuristic, but futuristic.
But Fury-ish? Fury-esque?
That's what it is. If they don't do that, I'll be pissed. And if they do that, they better give me some money for the name.
Yep.
Either way, I win.
Well, I think
Probably
that's a
not.
good round out to our second podcast.
Yeah.
We talked about such random shit.
And now we have to get lawyers.
Yeah, that's gonna be good.
How many? What lawyer do you think I get for $10?
Natasha?
That's right. Who can deny a cat?
Yeah, Mancoon. He knows his shit. He's old.
Your hermaphrodite cat. Or it's transgender.
It's
cat.
transgender.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Natasha, who we found out years later was a boy. Which is fantastic.
Natasha identifies as a woman.
Yeah, I don't give a shit, sure. Whatever he wants, or whatever she wants, I don't care.
Yeah, be sensitive, man.
He didn't even look at me. He's just looking out the window. He doesn't care.
He can't even look at you. That's what it is.
Oh, that's what it is. He's like so offended. That's hilarious. Well, that's been the second episode of FGG. Fucking great games. We talked about games maybe a third of the podcast.
Freedom Wars, get Freedom Wars.
Freedom Wars, yeah. Now's your dreams. Oh, God. Crusaders of Might and Magic.
I think that's a hint to stop smoking.
Yeah. Soul Sacrifice. I like the little, preface to this.
We didn't talk about Base Wars, but
Cyber Stadium Series Base Wars. You talked a little bit about it.
that's pretty much
The
it.
Guardian Legend.
The Guardian Legend is great. I love that game.
And then Crystallis was the other one.
was the other one.
Yeah. So check out those games. If there's any ones... Bless you.
Excuse me.
That we haven't played or you think we haven't played, drop in the comments.
And I will prove you wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, tell us your favorite kind of what you think obscure or underrated games are. And if we haven't played them, which I honestly find doubtful between the two of us.
Well, one of us probably played something.
Yeah. We'll definitely check it out. If not, it's just a good conversation.
Games. There's lots of newer games I haven't played.
Yeah, give us just the rare gems. Not talking about some weird third party 500 string Wii game. Don't do that.
And no porn games.
Yeah, don't do that either.
I've already played with a General Custer's thing.
Yeah. Don't do
game.
that.
No pun intended.
I definitely threw some Vita games and stuff in my list, but we're more talking about Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, PS1, that kind of era. Think PS2 and under. I would recommend.
Yeah.
But if there's anything from those generations that you either just want to talk about or hear us talk about or recommend to play, shoot us a comment. And you can hit me up on Twitter at Anthony R. Schultz. Pretty easy to remember.
I don't have anything that you can hit me up yet. I have a YouTube channel that has nothing on it. It's Beat Saber.
Beat Saber,
I like
yeah.
Beat Saber. Juicy John McD. It's
Yeah,
there.
and if you hit us up on Castbox, where we host this podcast, it's got a community function built in. So you can follow and subscribe there, but you can also comment on specific episodes or on the channel. You can talk with one another, even. So if you guys have the same favorite kind of nostalgic games, you can meet new peeps and talk to them about it. So, that's been another episode.
Juicy John McD.
This is Anthony Schultz. Have a good night.
Out.